Okay, we're live. Meeting is yours, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. First of all, I want to apologize. I'm under the weather this evening. So bear with me in my situation. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7:01. If you know, this is an electronic meeting under the Open Meetings Act. This meeting will be conducted and held electronically as authorized under the Open Meetings Act, Public Act 267 of 1976 as amended. Members of the public body and members of the public may participate electronically as posted throughout the township and on the township's website. That being said, meeting is called to order. I'd like us all to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Supervisor Kowal,
Here. White Lake.
Treasurer Roman,
White Lake, I am here.
Clerk Noble, White Lake, Michigan. Trustee Ruggles,
Here, White Lake Township.
Trustee Smith,
Here, White Lake Township.
Trustee Voorhees,
President, White Lake Township.
and Trustee Powell.
Here, White Lake Township.
Very good. Thank you.
Mr.
Item-
Supervisor, before we begin, I would like to ask for a moment of silence for former Oakland County Clerk Bill Cadell that passed away on August 27th, please.
Very good. Moment of silence. Okay, moving on. Item number 4, approval of the agenda. Looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
I have a motion from Clerk Noble, support by Mike Roman. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Powell,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
Supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
Treasurer Roman,
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes.
Okay, at this time, move on to item 5, public comment. Anyone that might be out there in the wings, Brian, if there's somebody out there, you can give them instructions how to raise their hand, and they'll have 3 minutes to state whatever that is information. They do have to identify themselves for the record, though.
Okay, we do have a couple callers. Callers, press *9 if you'd like to raise your hand for a comment. Then state your name and address for the record. Again, *9 to raise your hand. No hands raised at the moment.
This moment, I will close public comment and move on to item 6, consent agenda. Consent agenda, of course, revenue expenses, check disbursements, list of bills, department reports, as such throughout the community development, fire, treasurer, and police. I would like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Looking for support.
Andrea will support that.
We have motion and support. Roll call vote, please.
Treasurer Roman,
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
Trustee Powell,
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 7, minutes. If you don't mind, we can group the 2 of them together. One was a little longer than the other, but the other was a special, as we've done in the past. Looking for a motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting of July 20th and the approval of special board meetings of July 29th, subject to any amendments. Mr. Powell.
Mr. Supervisor, before we vote on that, or before a motion is made, I have 2 very small suggested changes. The one is on page 23 of the regular minutes. It's the end of the very first line. And I asked my colleagues there whether or not you believe that is actually a question being asked, and should it end in a question mark instead of a instead of a period. That's a pretty easy one, just a punctuation issue. And I didn't know.
Repeat that.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, it's the, on page 23, the end of the very first line. I believe he's actually asking a question. He may be making a statement, but I'm asking you guys to decide whether that should be a question instead of a statement.
I would view it as a statement, but
Then I'm good. He's looking for something, and I thought maybe it was a question, but if I'm good at leaving it the way it is, if.
I thought it was a statement, Mike.
Okay, good. The next item that I had was on page 24. The second to the last paragraph from the bottom. I believe Trustee Smith is making a statement that she's empathetic to the statement and to the position, not emphatic to it.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you.
Duly noted.
duly noted, sir.
Mr. Roman,
I make a motion to approve both sets of minutes with Mr. Powell's change included.
a motion,
I'll
Motion.
support that.
support from Mr. Powell. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
Treasurer Roman,
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
and Trustee
Yes.
Voorhees,
yes,
and Trustee Powell.
Yes.
Two. Moving on to new business item 8A, which is the dangerous building show cause hearing for 9910 Highland Road. You all have a letter of a memorandum from Nick Spencer regarding this. And Nick, if you want, I'd like you to come on screen right now.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. And what I'd really like to do, and I think was the board's intention, but I will not answer for the board, was that we wanted to make sure that if there was going to be a resurrection of this building, so to speak, that it met with your approval and that you felt that it was feasible and could actually be done. And if they can meet that criteria. And this meeting is what's going to determine that. So I'm going to
Sure.
let you take the floor for the moment.
All right. Yes. Good evening, board. Yeah, we're before you tonight for the dangerous building at 9910 Highland. I'm sure you're all well aware. Remember from a couple months back, we gave Mr. Stephen Hutch, I believe it was 3 months to put together a proposal and get together some building plans and bring that all together and hopefully it was everything we needed to move this forward and not go forward with the dangerous building hearing officer's recommendation, which was demolition. I have, as noted in the memorandum I've sent to you, I have received a full set of building plans, professionally done, not a sketch on the back of a napkin. I was very pleased with what was sent to me, and a very comprehensive proposal of all of the trades and all of the work that is going to be completed, as well as the recommendation from the structural engineer for the foundation and ultimately the building itself. So again, I was very pleased with what was submitted, and I believe it's enough to move this project forward. Obviously, this is a decision up to the board. I'm just giving you my recommendation. I do want to point out, and I want to make clear, we have gone the route with this before where we had a building permit, and Mr. Hutch and his brother will speak to this most likely. I want to make sure if this is approved, that this project is moving forward and, is moving forward, that we don't get stuck and we're not sitting waiting for 6 months for this project to begin. By Michigan Building Code, if a project doesn't begin by 6 months, technically that building permit is null and void. So again, I think their intention is to really move forward with this project. They've put a lot of effort into what they've submitted. So I will leave it up to the board to vote on this to see if they want to change the decision of the hearing officer. Any questions? I'd be more than happy to answer.
Any questions this time for Mr. Spencer? Okay, I think the board mulled this over quite a bit. One moment, Mr. Hutch, you'll have an opportunity. This is for the board at this time. Okay, if the board has no question.
I have a quick one.
Yes, Andrew.
Nick, do you follow up on these like in like the month of September or like October? Sorry, would you continue following up on these? Is this how this generally? I'm just refresh my memory.
Are you talking about the building permits themselves?
Yeah, and their continuance of work.
So this one it's going to be fresh in my mind. So there's no doubt that I'm going to be, I pass by this house, if not daily, every other day. So I'm going to see it no matter what. I'm going to see that there's progress being made. Hopefully that there's progress being made. And I think that's their full intention, is to really move this along.
Thank you. Cause I go by it frequently too. So I've been looking at it too. So thank you, Nick.
Sure.
Mr. Roman.
Hey, Nick, how's the exterior appearance of that house now?
So the brick facade, actually there's 2 layers of brick, but the brick facade looks great. It's in very good shape. The roof structure is going to be completely removed and replaced. That was part of the proposal. So if we're looking for how does the roof look, it looks horrible. And the windows look horrible.
Do
But
we have a time?
again, go ahead.
Do we have a timeline for the roof?
So that is a question I would like Mr. Hutch or his brother to answer. As a side note, real quick, Mr. Hutch's brother has signed on to be more or less his general contractor. While he's not a builder himself, he is in the real estate industry, and he has signed on as being the contractor for this. But yeah, I would like him to answer that, because that is a big part of this. They are going to have to order some trusses. Those trusses will probably take, at this point, with the way things are going, I'm going to say if they order them tomorrow, 6 weeks minimum.
Okay. Any other questions from the board right now before I move on to Mr. Hutch? Very good. Mr. Hutch, do you care to tell us what your thoughts are on your process and kind of rough approximate timeline?
Yes, Nick and I had a conversation, I believe it was yesterday or Monday. Yesterday. And he asked that very question. Goal is to get the home tightened up before the bad weather hits. We do know there may be a delay in getting the trusses, but meanwhile, we've got plenty of work to do to make sure that we're ready for it when they do arrive. We may even purchase materials and put them in storage. There's talk that there may be shortages in different industries of materials. So we have to sort of anticipate that. But our goal is to get the new roof completely installed with the new trusses and sheathing and the shingles. And the exterior windows and doors also before the bad weather hits, like in November. So if we're on schedule, we can do real well. But if we get delays with contractors, I hope the board would be understanding that we're moving forward. I'll stay in good contact with Nick to let him know what's going on. And if there's delays, to inform him of such. My brother is maintaining 2 households. He's got a mortgage on the 9910 Highland Road, which he's responsible for on a monthly basis. Plus it's costing him to live elsewhere. If we can get this done in X number of months, that's our goal. I wouldn't like to accomplish it so that I can go on with my own life with other things. So I hope that satisfies the board. As I mentioned in the past, my brother has had pain issues with an accident that he suffered in 2011 and also another one in 2016. So at times he is laid up, but I'm available on a daily basis to move forward on this. And there's enough money available to us that I can even take care of my bills without having to seek a full-time job during the time that the home is being rebuilt.
Mr. Hutch, have you chosen a contractor yet for the roofing work?
We have carpenters lined up, and the shingles are pretty easy to install. You use the chalk line. I've done it in the past, rebuilt a whole farmhouse out in the country in Rose Township. So it's something that we would do ourselves and save about $10,000 towards other items.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, Nick, since you have, you feel reasonably comfortable with this, and Mr. Hutch has agreed in front of the board and on the record to keep a tight contact with you, I will make a recommendation that we take your recommendation and consider the issuance of a permit and them to begin work expeditiously. Would you be in agreement with that, Nick?
Yes, I would.
Okay, looking for a motion. Mr. Powell?
Yes, I move that the township board modify the dangerous building hearing officer's decision and allow the home to be repaired as long as the homeowner shows progress towards the end result of being completed within 8 months, and that the board receive a report from building official Spencer as he sees necessary to keep the board informed.
Very good motion. Looking for support? Support from Mr. Ruggles. Mr. Noble, roll call vote.
Trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
trustee Powell,
Yes.
trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
clerk Noble, yes, trustee Smith,
Yes.
treasurer Roman,
Yes.
supervisor Kowal.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Okay, thank you, Mr. Hutch, for being with us tonight. So hopefully keep things moving.
Very good.
Thank you. Okay, you're dismissed from the meeting unless you care to hang out. So
Can I ask one question?
certainly.
Our goal, of course, is to finish this within the 8th month that the township has indicated. But there could be circumstances that hit the country that would affect me, such as supply lines. The trucking industry has expressed that they may go on strike, keeping goods from getting to where they're supposed to, in opposition to certain things like vaccinations and other political things. There may be some things out of our control, but I'm going to try to plan ahead. But I'm hoping that as long as I'm keeping in touch with Nick, close to being finished in that 8 months, and you're satisfied with the progress, that I would need to know how to ask for an extension of that 8 months and still satisfy the board.
What you would need to do at that time would be to come back to Mr. Spencer, brief him continuously, not in the 11th hour.
Right.
And as long as he knows what's going on, he can come back to the board, and the board may or may not take the choice to revisit it, or may just automatically grant you an extension.
Fair enough. I'll try to do it in 6 months, but who knows? So
Understood. Okay. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay. Excuse me. Okay, under new business, moving to Janine, you're out there somewhere? Someplace over the rainbow? I don't know where Janine is. There's Janine.
Yes.
Resolution 21-031, tentatively declaring its intention to establish a special assessment district to be known as Coaldale Bay Aquatic Control and Lake Improvement. Would you care to give us a little briefing on that, Janine?
Okay, this is just a renewal. This is an ongoing assessment for weed control in Coaldale Bay. It's just the bay, so it's only a handful of parcels. But they've had this since I've worked for White Lake and before. So this is just another 5-year renewal for them.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Roman,
I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution 21-031 for the intention to establish the renewal for the Coaldale Bay SAD.
I have a motion by Mr. Roman looking for support.
Or
Support from Anthony Noble. Roll call vote, please.
trustee Smith,
Yes.
trustee Powell,
Yes.
trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
clerk Noble. Yes, treasurer Roman,
Yes.
and trustee Ruggles.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. 8C, public hearing to determine undertaking an improvement project and to establish and maintain a special assessment district to pay the costs associated therewith. Okay, so notice is hereby given the Township Board of Charter of Wet Lake that a regular meeting on the 21st day of September via Zoom, determine the following special assessment district will establish to receive public comments. So at this time, what I would like to do is open the public comment regarding the resolution 21-032, which is the resolution to undertake an improvement project to establish and maintain a special assessment district for this particular project, which is the Coaldale Bay Aquatic Weed Control. That is in the form of a motion. Looking for support.
Support.
I have motion and support. Roll call vote.
Supervisor Noble or supervisor Kowal. Another one.
You're starting to make
Supervisor Kowal.
you're starting
I know,
to
I'm starting
make
to
a
make a
habit of
Let's
that.
start calling. I don't want the job, trust me. No, thank you.
Yes.
Supervisor Kowal, treasurer Roman.
Quick question. Don't we have to have a public hearing first?
That's what I'm opening
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So
I
we're
think- I
voting
think-
to open.
Yeah,
I think Supervisor Kowal misspoke when he said public comment. It's the public hearing
Public
bit.
hearing, I beg your pardon. Public hearing for public comment. Say, I beg
Okay,
your
so
pardon.
I'm a yes for the public hearing.
Yes, go ahead.
Supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
yes, treasurer Roman,
Yes.
clerk Noble, yes, trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
trustee Smith,
Yes.
trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
trustee Powell.
Yes.
Anyone at this time from the public at large that has a question or comment on the Coaldale Bay Aquatic Weed Control, now is your opportunity to present it. Brian?
Callers, if you'd like to make a comment, please press *9 on your keypad. *9 to raise your hand. Okay, we do have one hand raised, 4980. Press *6 to unmute yourself and then say your name and address for the record.
Hi, this is Brandon Moore at 747 Ranbean on Coaldale Bay. I assisted with getting the signatures for the approval of the special assessment. So just stating my name to know that I'm here.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public?
Again, press *9 to raise your hand. No other hands raised at the moment.
Seeing no other hands, I'll make a motion to close public hearing on Coaldale Bay Aquatic Weed Control and Lake Improvement. Looking for support.
Or
Support from Mike Roman. Roll call vote, please, Mr. Noble.
Treasurer Roman,
yes.
clerk Noble, yes, supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
trustee Powell,
Yes.
trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
trustee Smith.
Yes.
We're now closed. Any questions from the board regarding the resolution 21-032? Janine, anything to add?
Nope, again, it's just a renewal.
Okay. Okay, so moving on, this will be ultimately to approve this. So looking for a motion from the board, Mr. Roman.
Motion to approve resolution 21-032 to establish the district for the Coaldale Bay SAD.
That was a motion. Looking for support.
Support.
Support from Mr. Ruggles. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Powell,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
treasurer Roman,
Yes.
trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
supervisor Kowal,
Yes,
clerk Noble, yes.
thank you.
Mr. Supervisor, point of interest.
Yes. Mr. Brown.
I just want to let everyone know that I believe based upon what we did just now, the public hearing for the assessment roll will be set for next month, if I'm not mistaken. And so I invite all the residents to make sure they attend that meeting as well.
I believe you are correct, Mr. Powell. Okay. Next item on our agenda will be the 8E, the resolution 21-030 to refund the balance of funds collected on the special assessment district known as Cooley Lake Improvement. Janine?
Okay, so the residents of this, this is also the one that is also in Commerce Township, and they had a 5-year special assessment. And then I did have some people come in and wanted to continue this, but that was back early in the summer and I haven't heard back from them. And then the person that originally created this, 5 years ago, called me a few times and said that he felt that the balance of money should be refunded because they only had originally intended to do this for 5 years and then they weren't going to continue after that, which they did tell me 5 years ago that was their intention. And like I said, I haven't heard back from the people that wanted to continue it. And so there is quite a bit of money that was never spent by the people for this special assessment. So, we can't keep it, so we need to refund it.
Very good. Questions from the board? Mr. Ruggles,
I'll make a motion if that's
please do.
okay. I'll make a motion to approve resolution 21030 to refund the balance of funds collected on special assessment district known as Cooley Lake Improvement.
I'll support
Motion.
that.
We have support by Andrew Voorhees. Roll call vote, Mr. Noble?
Supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
clerk Noble, yes. Treasurer Roman,
Yes.
trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
trustee Smith,
Yes.
trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
trustee Powell.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Item F is resolution 21-034, extension of commercial rehabilitation exemption certificate C2016-015A, Four Corners Square Flats LLC. And then we have a sister resolution, which they would need to be looked at or passed separately, but nonetheless is a resolution 21-035, extension of part of commercial rehabilitation exemption certificate C2016-15-4, Four Corners Square. What is before us is Mr. Al-Kafaji's development, of which has been a massive improvement to the south end of the township, as we all know, has been moving forward. He's been very successful with the Taco Bell and the multi-tenant building. This exemption is only for an extension of the 7-year period that he was granted by this board and the taxing authorities for the apartment building and the vacant parcel, that's on the corner. These circumstances as such in this economy, as we have all seen, have been rather interesting. And I have to give him a lot of credit for his resilience in making it through this conundrum. So I believe that we should take into consideration what he has gone through and the absorbent costs that have resulted in this delay. And the cost of materials, labor, everything else. If you want to talk about the perfect storm to build building at the wrong time, when COVID landed on our door, that was definitely it. And knowing where we came from this parcel and knowing where we are and knowing what we can look at the end, I believe it's been a huge improvement. And again, this is only for a request for the apartment building and the vacant parcel in the corner that is yet to be determined, although there are some potential takers right now. Questions from the board?
I have a
Mr.
question.
Noble. Mr. Noble.
So coming into this project through the planning commission and seeing all the delays and then having COVID take place, construction's about, I just ordered a window for my house, 2 of those windows, and it was 8 weeks. I was speaking with trustee Ruggles for his construction project. I know he's ran into supply chains. Earlier this evening, we heard a gentleman that wants to do the right thing and he's stuck with the supply chain with COVID, the delays. I had a chance at one of the Chamber of Commerce to speak. And one thing I spoke about in talking with other developers that looked at this project is they wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. It had a lot of major issues. And Shakir Akafazi took that chance with White Lake Township. And I think what we got to look at today, I think it's fair enough to say that we are all want our businesses to succeed. And at this point, I know with apartment financing, you have to have 60% or more, speaking with people in the business, to get the refinancing for that. So all the delays, I'm going to guess he's in the millions right now with overages. Not to mention, the thing you have to think about is the delays that set him probably 16 to 17 months behind. So I would like us to take those things in consideration and try to help our business owners that took a chance on White Lake Township when nobody else would. Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Powell.
Yes, just I've got a number of questions that the owner can certainly address, I'm sure, but I have 2 right up front that I'd like some discussion on. Number 1, why now? Since there's over 2 years left in the current agreement, and why? Well, let's start with why now? Do they want it instead of a year from now or 2 years from now? Oh, and the other question was, why 3 years instead of just 1 additional year or 2 additional years?
Yeah, I thought that too, Mike. Why 3? Is that the maximum?
That takes them to the maximum tenure under the way the legislation is written for the PA 210. So we had the opportunity when we initially issued that we could go up to 10 years, and that is the max. So, and I'm going to let them address these questions, but just so you know, that's what the original program is when you apply for it. So the 10-year cap. Mr. Alcafaci, or do you or any of one of your representatives want to address that?
I can address it. Paul Bond here. I'm Mr. Alcafaci's attorney. And again, thank you, Board of Trustees, Supervisor Cole, Treasurer Roman, and Clerk Noble for taking the time tonight. I'll make my comments brief. I won't reiterate, other than to say I agree with every comment made so far regarding the nature of what COVID did to everyone in the construction industry. To remind folks just really quickly, these abatements are based on a level of investment. There's no question that level of investment, as promised, has been made and exceeded. The jobs to be created are tracking appropriately, but COVID set everything backwards. Unlike the relief you might get from rent or the companies that got PPP loans, none of that was available for somebody with a construction mortgage loan, and that's something that we weren't able to attain. In this instance, for that very particular question, this project kicked off in 2016. Your board very generously approved in December of 2016 an abatement that would begin the following year. As you might guess, most commercial construction is not like your home. My home has I believe a 20-year mortgage, and it's amortized over 20 years. While your commercial notes get amortized differently, their duration is much shorter. In this instance, 4 to 5 years. We are running up against a refinancing clock, and this additional 3-year abatement will allow us to demonstrate to a lender that we can more likely meet our debt service coverage. That's the amount of money we need to generate from the property in order to cover those debts and to pay the mortgage and to pay vendors. There is good news. Certainly Tim Hortons and Taco Bell have made it through this and are they're no longer struggling, but they certainly never met the metrics we had hoped them for. But we are not asking for an abatement here. We are asking for the what we feel is the necessary amount to convince a lender to stay with us, much like Shocker has stayed with the township. And with that, hopefully I addressed your question, Trustee Powell.
Any other questions from the board? Trustee Smith?
If my memory serves me correctly, we approved this abatement in December of 2016 based on the plume. I believe that that you implored our board and was asking us to approve that abatement only because of the plume, not because of building costs or an investment into our community or anything else. So this goes to my fellow board members. I'm concerned about the precedent that this will set in the township. Of course, we want to support our business, but many businesses and people have been affected by construction and COVID. So I'm concerned if this abatement's being requested on construction cost, the fairness and the precedent that will set to other businesses in our community.
Mr. Powell?
Yes, to piggyback on what Trustee Smith has said, I would be very, very disappointed in this applicant if he didn't come back and ask for more, even if it wasn't needed, because from a business standpoint, it only makes sense. Words, quite frankly, are very, very easy to say. The documentation to prove it is something more than that. And so for an applicant to come in and say, we're broke, we need money, please give us it. I'm a little concerned that we have no proof. We haven't asked our accountant. We haven't even asked Mr. Roman, trustee or Treasurer Roman, to look at the finances and verify that this is in fact something needed. We certainly don't want this applicant to go under. But at the same token, if he's making money, the township shouldn't be giving up the taxes on it. And I personally would feel much better if this were tabled until some verification of the request is at least presented. So I'm a little questioning. And so the other question I would have for the in-house officials, because I certainly don't know, I'm terrible with money, just ask my wife. What are the costs to White Lake Township if we offer this? Besides the loss in income to the township taxes, what are the out-of-pocket costs that White Lake Township may see if we extend this? And another question that I ask is, if we offer this and we approve it, are the taxes then abated for the fire department, the police department, the library, the schools, the county, and OCC, or is the township the only one that is abating our pro rata share?
Mr. Roman?
I should probably speak. So the taxes that are paid on that apartment right now are about $53,000 a year. That is all made up of state education tax and school operating tax. What gets abated in the summer are the county operated, the ISD, the OCC, the Walled Lake School debt. That all gets abated. The value of that abatement per year right now is saving Four Corners about $34,000 a year. The winter tax is what is paid to White Lake Township. It's for our own millages, our general millage, our police, our fire, the library. That amounts to about $25,000 a year. I guess my thought is, thank you, Mr. Akafaji, for doing this. Beautiful project. You took on a whole lot. From the very beginning, I was apprehensive to give 7 years. I originally thought 3 to 5, but I went along with it for whatever reason. I look at the economy now. I see all of the builders out there struggling, all of the businesses struggling, whether it's material costs, food costs, labor costs. I mean, everyone is suffering out there. So I'm kind of on the fence as well. And as Mr. Powell had mentioned, you do still have 2.5 years of abatement left on the project. That's all I have, Rick.
May I
Paul,
address the board?
you care to comment to that, Paul?
May I address the board? Thank you. I hear all your comments, and one I want to address immediately, which is the difference between being an operating business, many of whom who did it successfully seek PPP loans to gap that pain. Homeowners who were able to get mortgage forbearance, renters who were able to get that type of relief as well. No such thing was available here. The other reality is that unlike those businesses that were operating that had a clientele that were known to you, that had patrons that did their best to keep going there and keep them open, this project was jumping over the fence. In March of 2020, which was the finish date for 2 of these components, we were already shut down, and we weren't just shut down because the supply chain stopped. We were shut down because labor was told to go home. There was an indefinite pause that the government said you must comply with. In fact, to violate it would have been criminal. There wasn't the sort of options to say, I'm a business person, I'll take another risk and I'll proceed ahead. It simply was impossible, but you had debt service. I hopefully we've explained why we need the additional 3 years, what it means to the refinancing component. But this project was literally jumping over the fence when it was caught by the fence being changed in elevation by COVID. I mean, it really was not an unusual circumstance. Trustee Smith, I respect the fact that you are very circumspect with these, and this is the exception to the rule. Everybody is experiencing a certain amount of pain. Certainly we have and will continue. But what we're hoping is this additional grace, if you will help us achieve refinancing so that we can achieve the vision that we had hoped for. Our concerns obviously is that the apartment absorption won't be met and possibly another owner won't be the same owner that we would be. The second owner of a project takes it in a different circumstance. And maybe the next individual won't have the same passion for getting the corner lot moved forward. So I would tell you those things are very project specific and certainly would not lead to a precedent generally to favoring one business over another.
Keep in mind, just to touch on that, I'll get to you in a moment, Scott, that the PA 210 is a process in itself, which is for rehabilitation. So it is not something that's available to every business in the community. If some business just wants to come in and do it, there has to be extenuating circumstances. In the case of we did it originally was because of the derelict building and corner and the ground contamination that was there. It was a combination of different things, which evidently the ground contamination ended up being far more extensive than even originally thought before this was even sought. The original PA 210 was sought. So just remember that in your mind. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, just Paul, are you indicating that if this doesn't pass, then the property is going to be sold or there'll be another owner soon?
No, I'm indicating that that's one of the outcomes when financing can't sometimes be restructured. That's our fear. I mean, I Trustee Voorhees had the same comment regarding being circumspect with these type of incentives. We certainly respect that, but what I think we're asking for is really every little bit will help. And while this is not a little bit of money, we consider 3 years of additional abatement the first part of a building block in terms of restructuring financing. It's not the only, but yes, it's a necessary component. I'm not a person that presents ultimatums. I know Shocker has more hope than maybe most lawyers who are probably a little more risk adverse. But I know I'm presenting to other township boards, other city councils, projects where we're turning back projects, where we're telling them, here's our reimbursement agreement. We're asserting force majeure. We're not going to proceed. I don't want to come back to you guys and have that argument. That's very painful. So when I see it elsewhere in markets that have much greater absorption in densified city areas, White Lake Township is, and I live in Hamburg Township, for anyone's curious. We've had some projects that have stalled, not because of anything inherent of our township. It's just, this is the market, and projects that like this that are at the time, by the way, 1/3 complete, really took it more, took a much more difficult situation than businesses that were already under operation. It was really horrible timing. It couldn't have been worse. You can imagine if you were doing a home renovation and your construction loan you were still paying on, your mortgage was still paying on, but you had no ability to proceed. And no actual timeline when that may change.
So my train of thought here, I'm a little conflicted myself. I'm very sympathetic to what you've gone through, having gone through it myself. I've got a project going, which with delays, cost overruns, right? Everything that you've experienced. So I know what you're saying, and it's very true. At the same time, me and every other business owner in White Lake Township would not be able to request a 3-year extension on abatement that was awarded because of a plume that existed. So, I mean, it's hard to say yes, because of COVID, you get another 3 years. We all went through COVID, but there's only one person here that is able to request a 3-year extension on their tax abatement. So really, I don't know which, I'm very conflicted on how to decide on this issue. I believe I hear what you're saying. I agree with you. I just, I'm not sure how to feel about it.
Okay, I'm going to let Janine Smith, our assessor, address the board.
I just wanted to make a couple comments. One being that they didn't ask for an exemption on all of the buildings. The ones that are completed, they're not asking for an abatement on those 2. I just want to make sure that you're aware of that.
Yeah, they're only asking for the apartment building and the corner lot, correct?
Right, those are the only 2.
That is correct.
And then also, the state has a deadline, so you can approve this. The state still has a say-so, and their deadline is the end of October. So they only do abatements once a year. And so if we don't get this to them by the end of October, they won't hear it for another year. So I just want you to be aware of that as well.
That's not the end of the world, though.
It's a time-sensitive process.
They still have 2.5 years left, so.
Yep.
I just want to make clear, we don't have 2.5 years to refinance. That part of, if you want to think about what we're structuring now as a package to a lender to say, here's what we think we can generate in revenue. Here's what we think our operating costs will be. Here's what we think we can do in debt service. All of that will factor into. So if you're showing an increase in the tax burden in the next 5-year cycle, which would happen if this were to uncap, that's going to affect that pro forma. It's part of the embedded cost of owning this property. And I will tell you, rents are still uncertain. I think you just heard from Nick Spencer, who eloquently said, yeah, I mean, you better order the trusses because it could change tomorrow. We're staying in this with today's understanding that the virus will roll back, that we'll keep going to school, we'll keep going to work. Taco Bell and Tim Hortons will continue to function. All of that, I think you've all seen how tenuous that can be. So convincing a lender to stay with you requires as much support as we can. And this message from the township is a powerful one. It would be not just the dollar amount, but it would be our ability to go back and say the township's, thinks there's going to be a success here as well. And that's meaningful.
Okay. Mr. Al-Kafaji, you care to address the board? You need to hit your mute. There you go.
Thank you. I appreciate everybody's time, and thank you to the board for your help in the 7 years to start with. And none of us have seen what was coming up, that what we were going to face. Many of my friends who are developers that have left big projects and without finishing them because of the cost overrun and remobilization after the state closed us down. We finished the project. We chose to finish the project, and we took a risk here as big as we could take at the time. And we were betting on White Lake to that this project will be a catalyst for others to come and invest in White Lake. And I hope this will continue. We did not want to abandon this. And I have brought with me today our GC, who can address our cost overrun and remobilization of what we went through and what our budget was and what we ended up with. And also I brought Leslie, who is the management company that manages the apartment. Now, after we got done, we're trying to lease those units right now. And she can give you an update of where we're at with the leasing of those apartments. I mean, COVID have hit us in so many ways. Right now, many people are hesitant about renting apartments within interior corridors because they want to be on the outside instead of the inside. And that have hurt us our chances as well. And our cost overrun have forced us to charge more money per unit. And I think Leslie can address that after Mr. Bernie Ranish from Ranish Construction, who's our GC on the project, and can give you an update of where we were and where we ended up. Thank you so much.
Mr. Ranish, do you want to address the board?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, everybody. Sorry I look so orange on there. I'm really not that orange. I'm just like you guys are. So, yeah, the COVID affected all of us, and yes, it did shut down the project for a month. The stop, the restart, the remobilization. As anybody in the building business knows, it's all about momentum. So once that momentum stops, it's disastrous to a project to try to get it back going again. On top of COVID, there's also been in the last 2.5 years, even after we were shut down, there's been 20 to 40% material increases across the board. You could blame that on COVID, or a lot of people, depending on what you read, blame it on other things, supply chain, people shutting down, people with a lack of staffing. So we've had material increases along the way, along with labor shortages. So, I've been working on this project since I think 2017, maybe even later in 16. We had a really good budget set for this project, right around 16 million all in. Shocker and I just went through our final numbers. It adds up to 20 million. So that 20 million's in real numbers. Those are in masonry, drywall, lumber packages alone, are $400,000 to $500,000. So I think we all know that when we went to Lowe's and you go buy a 2x4, that $2.50 2x4 is now $7.50, $9. That we got hit on almost every day. We had subcontractors that were willing just to walk. They were under subcontract, and they were willing to just walk and potentially get sued, even though they were under contract. They didn't have the money in the bid. We had lump sum bids with them, and they were willing to take on a lawsuit. And we ended up working out with pretty much everybody, some cost overruns, and Shocker took it out of his pocket to keep these guys working and keep them motivated. Some of them we had to switch out because they couldn't man it or they didn't want to do it. So every single trade, there's probably, and I have a sheet in front of me, there's probably 40 trades that were involved on this project. Not one of them stayed the same as what it did in 2018. So we had massive movement, and it's not just COVID, it's the unprecedented labor and material increases that we've experienced over the last couple of years.
Very good. Mr. Noble.
I have a question for Janine. For such a to Trustee Smith's point in the precedent, it's my understanding for that property with the it being hazardous waste soil that they had to haul out of there. That's why they were able to apply for this tax abatement, correct? Not every property owner that's putting up a subdivision or anything like that would be able to do such, correct?
You are correct to a certain degree. We had to create a district, which is bigger than the actual project, that we said there was mitigating underground or, other circumstances why we wanted this project or why we wanted this area to be. It wasn't just that contamination. It was that the buildings were old and needed to be replaced. So it was more than just the contamination. It was the contamination and the condition of the buildings that allowed us to create a district for rehabilitation.
Okay. And then the second question, maybe Paul or Mr. Kafazi could answer this. On the financing restructuring, if you had to get what was told to me as 60%, what's the number of apartments that you have to get to refinance? If we were to give this abatement to you, by doing such, how's that going to help your situation as far as that go? Is that going to be able for you to lower those rents so you can reach that sweet spot of 58 or 60 apartments?
And I think Leslie can respond to that, who's our management company. Leslie?
I don't think she hears you.
No, she's there, but I don't.
Can you hear me?
Leslie,
Can you-
are you there, Leslie?
Yes, can you? Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Yes. Okay. Yes, I mean, we're trying our darndest to rent these apartments. Our expectation was to be, obviously much more leased up right now. We're currently at 38% leased. We've kept our rents at the high number as the bank demanded for debt service coverage and assorted, that was our pro forma number that we had. Our goal was to be at 80%. And for obviously all the reasons that everybody's mentioned. And we've done everything possible to lease these apartments with businesses in the area. We've had chamber open events. We've and we're every day, we're going at it. But our goal is to be, it was to be at 80%. That was our pro forma number at this point in the project by the end of the summer. And we are at 38% currently leased.
Okay. Anyone hear me?
Did we lose Mr. Supervisor? Yep, we did.
Is Rick here? Rick's gone.
Stand by.
Mike, why don't you go ahead?
Defer to Anthony then.
All right, yes.
Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead,
All right,
Mike.
thank you. I guess I have two questions. Number one, I would feel much more inclined to giving a 1-year extension tonight or tabling altogether. But quite frankly, normally it's the government that says, they say something and believe me, it's the government. We're telling the truth. But I would much prefer to see a financing pro forma. I mean, not one shred of documentation has been submitted to justify what the gentlemen are saying and the young lady is saying. So I would feel much better for the full 3 years for them to provide us a refinancing pro forma so that we know what they're asking for. And we know that in fact, the requested refinancing needs this 3 years. And right now they haven't convinced me. So right now I'm a no.
Anthony, are you going to take over? Or?
Yeah, I guess.
You're the
You're
MC.
Who wants to
go
You're the
next?
MC.
All right. I just thought he would get back on. Go ahead. Who wants to go next? Liz?
Trustee Smith, thank you.
Trustee Smith.
So I can't consciously support this in fairness to our other businesses in White Lake. This project was slow moving before COVID even hit. And I just would like to reiterate some of my points. I agree with Trustee Powell. and Trustee Ruggles. We are sympathetic. Many of us are business owners on this board, so we do understand. But my recollection in 2016 was when Randy came in. I remember that conversation is addressed to the board. It was a stretch for us then to go to the 7 years. And so I do think this is kind of, I heard you're asking for a 3-year abatement for 1 month shutdown during COVID. You said you were only shut down 1 month. All businesses struggled in White Lake. And I also am uncomfortable with mixing the reasons. I know that this was requested due to contamination in the plume, and now it's being morphed into being requested due to COVID. So I would either support tabling this tonight, looking for more information. Otherwise, I'll be a no this evening. Thank you.
Treasurer Roman?
You guys hear me? Can you guys
Yes.
hear me? Okay. So, you guys had mentioned something a couple times that due to cost overruns, you're charging more for rent. And I think you even said your bank wants you to charge more for rent. Just, FYI, the smartest guy I've ever met business-wise was a tool and die owner. And when recession came and all the tool and die companies started suffering, all of his competitors tried to do just that. They tried to raise their prices. He, on the other hand, reduced his prices, which in turn filled up his shop with work, and he survived. And so my advice, Shocker, is to lower your rents and fill up those units. That was one. Just another comment, and I guess I would like to ask our attorney, when we approved the resolution for the 7 years, I believe there was a statement in there that specifically stated no extensions would be given on this abatement. Lisa, comments?
Yes, and that was actually a statement that was added to the draft resolution when it was approved. It specifically says no extensions shall be granted. And I think that was added because at the time the request was being made, the applicant was asking for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And the recommendation of staff before the township board at that time was 5 years. And so I believe at that time during discussion at the meeting, the township board agreed to move it up to 7, but added the sentence to the resolution that says no extension shall be granted. That's not to say you can't reconsider based on changed circumstances, but if you do that, I would certainly want some information included in the resolution that clearly outlines why you're reversing your decision.
So from here, guys, I agree with Mr. Powell, Ms. Smith, that maybe the best thing to do is to table it until we get absolute proof that, in order to improve your financial situation, you need that abatement.
Go ahead, Andrea.
Thank you for the information, Leslie.
Voorhees.
Yeah, no, sorry. Thank you, Leslie, for the information on the capacities of the apartments. That was one of the questions I had. My only other question was, why now? Why not a year from now? You have 2.5 years. Yeah, let's wait a year. But I'm somewhat in agreement with my fellow trustees. Table it.
I have one thing to say. I'm going to agree with Trustee Powell. I don't see the side of extending it for a year with the financials coming back. And at this point, we've got the resolutions drafted up. Maybe seek the advice of Lisa or our attorney, Ms. Hamami. But I think that was an excellent idea by Trustee Powell. That gives the flexibility to them to come back. I'm sure, Mr. Shocker, could you provide those
Of course.
documentation?
Of course we can.
If we were to pass that tonight and come back within that time frame, that year, to show us, because the main thing I think what I'm speaking on behalf is understanding and I spoke with the vice president of a large real apartment complex. It's in 17 states, just to find out that, and if he could secure the financing and come back and show us those numbers, I think that makes the most logical sense. We don't want to hurt him as a business owner by not giving them that, because we don't know what's going to happen in the next year with the economy. I have my doubts that it's going to maintain the way it is. I think it could get worse, but I'm not an expert in it. So I would like to caution on the conservative side, like Trustee Powell, give him that year, have him come back and provide that. I don't see the harm in that, helping the business owner. Go ahead, Mr. Akapaji.
I guess I want to ask the lawyer, Ms. Hamama, can I submit my financials and financial of the project and keep it sealed without being open to the public, to the whole world? Because it will affect our business.
No, if you submit something to the township, it's public information. We would redact, social security numbers, account numbers, as far as the numbers are concerned. Now, I don't know if if the board would be satisfied with some sort of summary of the documents as opposed to submitting actual documents. I think what's lacking is real substance demonstrating the financial strain and the circumstances and why you're asking for it. And I think that's what they're looking for, whether that be by submitting specific documents or a more formal discussion or elaboration on the financial situation. And I don't know, board, correct me if I'm misreading your request.
I mean, I don't mind submitting the financials to the board itself, but I'm hesitant about, opening the financials to the whole world, and which it might affect our project negatively. I mean, I don't mind submitting to every person in the board the exact all the financials, whatever they need. Is that possible without opening it and keeping it public? That's my question. If I submit it to the board, is that possible?
Unfortunately, anything that comes to the public, to a public body, is public information and can be, FOIA'd to anyone that wants that information. It's just unfortunately how the law is set up. There's no hiding anything when it comes to that type of information. That information becomes public knowledge. Correct, Counselor?
Yeah, I don't know if the board maybe wants to ask for submission of specific information. I mean, really what you're looking for, I believe, is just some substantiation of the need for a 3-year extension, and that's what you've not heard. So do you specifically want his financial information, or will some summary of substance as to the need and why 3 years is being requested?
Well, perhaps we could have a summary of what the original cost of construction were and what the actual as-built construction actually was.
Well, we got that tonight. I think they $4 million overrun, they said.
Yeah, and I'm not as concerned about their overages, because construction projects go over all the time, including the townships that we're going to be dealing with later. We have had lots of them that have gone over, but they've made representation that they need this in order to refinance, number one, and they need this to potentially sell the property to someone else. So
no, we're not selling the property.
Okay,
Yeah, I don't believe anyone said
all
that.
right. Then what I'm looking for is, if you need this decision in order to get refinancing, I need to know that that's the truth. And even if it comes from a bank and says, we hereby guarantee to refinance this project if you do this, and you guys all agree to it. But I'm sorry, it's really nice. Every single one of my clients would love to have this. And if they thought they could do it, they'd be before every board that we attend saying, listen, we need money, we need an abatement in order to continue. And I'm sorry, I'm not challenging that, but I need documentation to prove that.
Could I get you a letter from, I'm sorry,
Go ahead, Shocker.
could I get you a letter from the bank, Fifth Third Bank, who are the financiers, who financing this project, indicating what our debt service ratio is and how it will work with the 3-year abatement and how they can help us with that?
I would want to see then two things. One, number one, and that's okay to that, but they would have to say on their letterhead, we will not accept refinancing this project unless the township does this because of this.
Because of the debt service ratio.
Right.
Yes.
Is that possible to get that letter?
I believe so, because that's what they told us.
Well, okay, trustee Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I have to be honest here, it makes me leery to hear the hesitation in providing documentation to us. And then I just want to kind of clarify with my board members here. I think we're kind of now taking on two issues. I agree with Treasurer Roman that we did vote in 16 to not extend this. So I'm not in favor of the extension and going against our own board. And then we're kind of talking about the separate issue of they need this now for refinancing, and we'd like to see documentation of that. So I just putting that out there to be clear. If someone's making a motion, I feel like there's two separate issues going on now. Thank you.
Mr. Roman.
Shocker, do you have an objection to me talking to your bankers?
No, not at all.
Okay, well, if that's okay with you, I would like to do that. If you can put me in touch with them.
Of course.
Whoever your loan officer is, get me in touch with them. And I think maybe I can help facilitate what it is that this board is looking for. And with that thought, my thought would be at this point to just table this.
So we will be tabling items F and item G. Correct?
Yes.
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 Okay, any questions or comments from the board? Okay, we looking for a motion. Mr. Roman, you care to make a motion?
Yeah, I need help from Ms. Hamami. If I table, do I need to put another date on? So we table to the next board meeting, I guess?
Mike?
Yep.
I got a question, just real simple. So they've got her, what Janine was saying, they got till October, I think.
Right.
Would there be enough time for you to talk to that, to provide that information, so they're not stretched out another year if he were able to provide that information to you?
Yeah, I think so.
If not, we have to wait a year. Go ahead.
What was the deadline, Janine?
The end of October. So you still have the October meeting.
October 30th.
Yeah, I think we're fine.
So I think the motion should kind of, if you get that information, maybe you could put that in your motion, Mike, that pending that financial, or we can table it to then, but will we have time in October?
Procedurally, it would be just tabling it.
Okay.
So motion to table this issue,
October 19th.
which again is 8 F and G until the next board meeting in October.
Support.
Motion, we have support, roll call vote.
Supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Treasurer Roman,
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
Trustee Powell.
Yes.
Motion carries, gentlemen. See you in a month. In the meantime, please have Mr. Roman, your liaison with your bank and your financial machine so that we can get the information that he potentially could bring satisfactorily to the board. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Item request for pay increase crossing guards. Chief Keller? Here somewhere.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. This is a request. They're currently making $13.50 an hour, or I'm sorry. Yes, $13.50 an hour. I'd like to increase it to 14. an hour immediately, and then in the school year 2022 increases to $14.50, and then school year 2023 increases to $15 an hour. We have very few crossing guards. They don't make very much money. They have to get up in the morning for a couple hours, and then they have to go back in the afternoon for a couple hours. And they do it without complaint, but I'd like to pay them a little more for what they do.
It seems to be a very interesting way of going through the labor market right now. Wondering what you're proposing is adequate. Mr. Powell.
And you guys, all you guys will understand where I'm coming from on this. I'm curious as to how you came to those dollar amounts, because again, they work hard. They're very well respected. You've got nothing but good to say about each one of them. And I didn't know why we couldn't even start at 15 and go up from there.
Agreed.
Absolutely. I'm good with that. I was just trying not to be, didn't want to over ask. That sounds great.
I think the concern here is not just over asking, it's just with the current job market, where it's going, the difficulty that we've seen with the labor market in that particular position, the amount of actual time that they work,
yes,
the wage they make. For me, you know, I questioned that in my mind from the beginning. I'm glad you brought it up, Mr. Powell. And it's just something I think that the board should give consideration. Just start it right at 15 and do the incrementally as you're
right.
discussing.
Yep. That's awesome.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Supervisor. So I agree, this is a really important job. And unfortunately, Walled Lake Schools had a child hit crossing within the recent week. So it's really important that we have quality people doing this job and that we pay them well. And, you know, it is a little bit unpleasant hours so early and whatnot. But I have a question on the increase moving forward. So if we start at 15, what would you be asking moving forward? Would you come back to the board, or would we go with like the 2% that goes on across the board in the township, or what are you proposing? I'm just curious what you'd be proposing in the future.
I would be proposing the 15 and then 50 cents an hour each of the next 2 years.
The 50 cents?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the chief was doing. We're just going to move the start number higher.
Yep. Right.
Same process.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Any other questions from the board? Other than that, I'd like to entertain a motion.
If I could I'm sorry, Mr. Noble. I'd like to make a motion. Chief, go ahead. Did you have something to say? I would. If we could, I'd like to start it at the school year. So start to 15 immediately, and then start to 15.50 and the 16 at the school year, not at year end, if possible.
So it would be like this. So you're going to back it up a little bit, or are you going to start next school year?
No, we'll start to 15 immediately, and then
awesome.
To make
okay.
it easier on the clerk's office, and then start school years from this point forward.
Absolutely.
No.
I'd like to make a motion for H, request for pay increase for a crossing guard, starting off at $15 this school year of 2021, and next year in 2022 at the starting year at $15.50 an hour.
Support.
The motion is support. Roll call vote.
Supervisor Kowal.
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Treasurer Roman.
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles.
Yes.
Trustee Smith. I'm off tonight.
Yes.
Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Trustee Powell.
Yes.
And Trustee Voorhees.
Yes.
Everyone. Next item, HI. Chief, you're still in the house here. Request to purchase tasers.
I just want to say thank you to everybody for the pay increases for them. That'll make them very happy and feel appreciated. But the next item is Taser purchase proposal. Just a little background. We purchased the tasers that we have, the X26s, back in 2014. They were supposed to last a maximum of 5 years. That's their shelf life. We've eked several more years out of it, but they're starting to break down with more frequency. So we would like to purchase the Taser 7s for the new tasers for the men and women of the police force. There's two cost comparisons that are in the proposal. One's for the certification bundle, and then the other is just for the basic plan. I'm requesting the certification bundle because it adds taser cartridges, training suit, hook and loop taser training cartridges. It adds much more, and in the end, it saves us. If we were to buy those separately, it would save us about $800 each year. This is a 5-year plan. Each year, it would cost $5,500.01 per year. It looks like for a total of $27,504.
What was the total amount again, Chief?
So it's $27,500.04.
Comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, entertaining a motion. Mr. Roman.
Yeah, I was just curious, Chief. The old tasers are what, about 7 years old?
Yep. Yes, 7 years old.
I'm just curious, on average, how many times have each of those tasers been used in 7 years?
So we've had 7 deployments in the past 4 years, and it's not really the deployments that are important. It's that we have them because everybody knows about the video. It says "Don't tase me, bro," and it went nationwide. Never understand what tasers are because they hurt. I've gotten tased.
I totally get it. It was really just a curiosity question. Is there any use for the old tasers?
We're gonna turn them in and get a credit. That's part of the credit. It's part of 27.
Awesome.
Yep.
You can't have one, Mr. Roman. Okay.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Supervisor.
Could I ask a question first, Scott?
Yeah.
Please. I guess I have 2 questions. Number one, is this coming from budgeted funds, Chief?
So the first year will come out of our training fund because of COVID, we haven't done as much training. So we have the first year funds will come out of there, and then equipment acquisition each year after. And yes, we have the funds. Thank you for asking.
So did you answer my second question first in saying that you have the training, the officer training included in part of this budget?
Yeah, so it's in-house training. So we have 2 officers trained. Lieutenant Ivory and Detective Saracen are trained Taser instructors. So we do in-house training. And the reason for the amount of cartridges for the first year, we'll have to go through them because they will be retrained on the Taser 7 and its usage.
Well, the reason I'm asking this is though because maybe you didn't answer my question. The training is going to be done after hours and not during working hours. And so is this going to be overtime hours to train?
No, we have set training. We have a set training schedule that we train during regular working hours. We try to mitigate our overtime exposure as much as possible. So the training will be done on the officers' 8-hour days and without overtime.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, questions from the board? Would Mr. Ruggles care to continue that?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve the police department's request to purchase tasers, the Taser 7 certification bundle, an amount of $27,500.04.
Motion, looking for approval. Mr. Roman, thank you for your support. Okay. Roll call vote, Mr. Roman.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
Trustee Powell,
Yes.
Treasurer Roman,
Yes.
Supervisor Kowal.
Yes.
Hold on, you forgot me.
Oh, Trustee Ruggles, all right.
Motion carries.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Next item, Mr. O'Neill will address land waiver request from minimum parcel vacant parcel 6176002. Whether or not the board recalls, but some time ago, Mr. O'Neill and I came to the board and we wanted to make a change in how this was done, because we're seeing that there's parcels lesser than 10 acres, which used to be our requirement of size 10 acres more. We're seeing having the ability to go to a plan development and things of that nature, a smaller parcel with approval of the board is been much more beneficial to the township as far as working with the developer to kind of get what we want to get. Mr. O'Neill?
Thank you, and hello, everyone. Mr. Supervisor, that was a good summary of how we got here. This ordinance amendment that the board adopted a few years back has been, I guess, sought after more recently. Doug Bohm, who is on the call tonight, has sent a request in to develop the property that's Union Lake Road from Independence Village, and I will share my screen to acquaint you with the location. This is the parcel that we've talked about being across from the Lake Point project. You'll remember it because there was quite a bit of discussion about a future passing lane, and that came up. I'm kind of jumping ahead with that, but that'll kind of direct your minds to the exact geographic location. So this is a difficult parcel to develop, not only because of its size, which is 8.37 acres, but it's very rectangular. So it's somewhat limited. It's currently zoned local business. This area does not need another local business development. I think we could all agree that traffic-wise, the use that's being proposed is probably far more appropriate for this parcel. Not only is it consistent with the master plan, the requested use of a assisted living facility, which I think is roughly 60 beds in size, which is pretty modest, but it would be a planned development zoning. Let me pull the plan up here for everyone to take a look at. Here we are. So the plan that accompanies this request is very basic. I don't know if everybody can see that okay. The parcel, again, is pretty shallow and wide. You can see the darker shaded gray is the traffic circulation lane and parking lot, and the building is located, kind of in the center of this loop right here. I think the use is appropriate for this parcel. The Planning Commission felt that that same way on August 19th. And so given the fact that the parcel is sort of challenging, that the use is more appropriate than what it's currently zoned for, which is local business, they made a recommendation to you that a waiver request be approved for planned development on this parcel. Again, it's 8.37 acres in size. The master plan designation is planned neighborhood. That yields a density of 8 to 10 units an acre. Again, I believe the applicant's requesting somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 or so beds. So it is, within the range that's provided by the master plan for that designation. So I know I'd actually encourage the applicant to have a traffic study done, because you would want to see the reduction that this type of use would allow for or provide for in this parcel compared to if it were zone local business, which it is, again, currently zoned for. So I believe he's in the process of preparing that. If you have any questions for him, I know he's here. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them for you. But again, this is a request for waiver of the minimum parcel size, which we found in Article 3.11.x. Again, it's a 10-acre minimum, but the waiver that's been recommended by the Planning Commission comes to you for final action to allow it to move forward. I always say in these cases that by approving a waiver request, you are in no way approving a site plan. You're simply allowing the applicant to move forward through the normal process. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. If there's anything you'd like me to project, I'd be happy to do that. And again, Mr. Baum.
Question.
Yeah. Just a moment. Sure. Okay. Are you okay? Trustee Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. When you put the map up, Sean, I just want to be clear. When you and I talk, is this like the boot property? Like it's shaped like a boot?
It's not. That actually is West Valley. This is sort of tucked into that property.
So it's more like a triangle?
It's a rectangle, actually, Liz.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, there aren't parcel lines on here, but I do not want to create a breakout room. Okay, there we go. So I'll back out. Can everybody see my screen okay?
Yes.
So Lake Point is right here.
Okay.
West Valley, the boot shaped property you're talking about, is kind of tucked behind the property that Mr. Bohm is interested in. And then kind of right here is the parcel that he seeks to develop. So it's sort of like a, I don't want to call it a sliver. It's more substantial than that, but it's a very shallow property off of Union Lake Road with quite a bit of frontage right
Sean,
across
do you
from
have-
Independence Village.
Sean, do you
Yes.
have,
I
do
appreciate
you have
that.
his site plan? If you pull that
I
site
can put
plan
that
up,
back up.
it'll
Sure.
show you the lot size and in relationship to the streets.
Can
There
you
it
see
is.
that? Everybody see that? Okay. Yeah, that is basically, the site takes up, or I should say his layout takes up a great deal of the parcel. This is a basin down here, but that boot property that you were referring to kind of comes up against the back of it, you know, in this area. It surrounds it on this corner.
Thank you. I appreciate you showing me that.
No problem.
Any other questions from the board at this time? Mr. Powell?
I know it's a surprise and I'm going to ask a question, but I guess I am a major fan of PDs and PVs. I just, no matter what size they are, I'm a major fan. If in fact we agree that there's a reason for PD, it should be a win-win, not only for the owner, but for the township, because it gives a great deal of flexibility in the design of a site. As currently zoned, I believe, Sean, he could put this in there, but he would have to go to the zoning board of appeals because it breaks virtually every requirement in the zoning ordinance to put that size building on this site. And so my question is, what public benefit is there that he was going to represent for this to be a PD instead of just a standard zoning?
I don't know that, first of all, I don't know that local business would allow for an assisted living facility. If it does, it would be a special land use. It's not a use by right, for sure. That would be more of a RM type, multiple family type zoning, or they're even allowed on larger ag parcels as a special land use. I don't know that it's allowed on local business. So as far as the public benefit is concerned, that's something that Doug Mr. Bohm would have to address. But Mr. Powell, to your point, this only allows him to move forward and make that request formally through the site plan that he would have to submit and the rezoning request that would come forward at the same time that the site plan is submitted. So at the time of preliminary, so say tonight this moves ahead, he goes back to the drawing board, they submit a site plan and rezoning application, and then in a couple of months, you see that product in front of you. You're able to then at that point say, all right, what is the recognizable public benefit that would, you know, offset the impact to the community? And that's for him to propose that at that time. So I hear what you're saying, and I think he might be able to speak to that tonight. But as far as his, you know, formal proposal on that is concerned, we might be a little premature in trying to ask for that at this point.
Okay, so there are three things that I'm asking the applicant to consider, because so far I've not been convinced that the public benefit on many of our developments have been township benefited, but they've certainly been developer benefited, number one. Number two, I don't see, at least in this preliminary plan, any relationship or any tie to the surrounding developments that really need this site to access it for fire protection and for emergency egress and for passing lanes and everything that was put off on the adjacent parcels because we still had this one to rely on. And number two, from Union Lake Road, this is a massive building along the frontage. And there's going to have to be some really creative architectural features in order for this to not look like an institutional building flat front across Union Lake Road. So I just throw those things out. Again, I'm a major fan of PD. And so I'm going to vote for this, but the next step is going to be a hard sell to me.
Mr. Powell, just really quickly, you mentioned some things that Mr. Bohm and I spoke about 2 months ago when he first contacted me. He has been in contact with Mr. Fenari, who is a developer of both the one that's behind him and across the street from him. I believe they've had some dialogue. I've expressed to him that the township is going to be, fairly direct in its demand for traffic improvements that may involve the right-of-way or future right-of-way along the frontage of his property. And so he is absolutely aware of that. I've mentioned to him this to him a handful of times. And then also the desire for us to possibly have some utility connections, cross connections and looping, and possibly some reciprocal access where the two sites would come together for fire safety, or for, I should say, emergency access. So they're working on all that. I think these two projects, while not codependent as the Lake Point and West Valley projects are, I think they could really mutually benefit by working together. The issue here is just that Mr. Fenari is, getting ready to construct, and Mr. Bohm is now coming on sort of in the 11th hour. So I think it's important for you to tell him this tonight, so he's hearing it loud and clear, because I think he's going to have to, I'm not sure what his dialogue's been with Mr. Fenari, but I think he's going to have to probably press on and try to resolve some of those things in order to bring a better plan that's going to be more suitable for this area and more appealing to the township board.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from the board members at this time? All right, seeing none. Is there anything that you want to address to the board, Mr. Baum?
Good evening, board members. I do have a PowerPoint that I did share with the Planning Commission back in August. I do have that available if you would like to view that. I can pull that on my screen if you would like me to share my screen, if I am capable of doing that. Let me see here.
I personally don't need that because it's also, as Sean pointed out, it's fairly premature, but
It is at this time.
Okay,
So,
perfect.
yeah.
Well, and you know what I'd be happy to do, Doug? If you'd like to email me that PowerPoint, what I'll do is I'll email it out to the township board, and then at their leisure, they can go through it, because it would be good for them to acquaint themselves with the type of product you're looking at here, just so they can begin to understand, what it is they'll be looking at. But, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, I would prefer to save everyone's time.
Well, we want, plus it's preliminary right now anyways. We just want to get you into this, get you through this first request. So if you don't really have much to add other than the fact that you're trying to just move forward and work collaboratively with the township to put a product there that will be beneficial to the community as well as your business, I think the board will appreciate all of that. Mr. Roman, did you have something you wanted to? No? Okay, I thought I saw your hand go up. Mr. O'Neill, anything else you want to add?
I have nothing further unless anyone has any questions for me.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? If not at this time, I'd like to see a motion. Propose a motion. Mr. Powell.
all right, yes, Mr. Supervisor, I move that the township board grant the plan development waiver as requested to the minimum parcel size for parcel 1236-176-002 to allow for a development on this site that meets the requirements of the normal plan development zoning district.
You have a motion looking for support?
I'll support it.
A motion of support by Anthony Noble. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Powell,
Yes.
trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
trustee Smith,
Yes.
clerk Noble, yes, treasurer Roman,
Yes.
supervisor Kowal.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you.
Supervisor Kowal.
Yes.
I just want to go back to the crossing guard motion. I'd like to add into that motion. I have it down for $15 the 2021 year, $15.50 for 2022 starting, and then it goes up to, as I understand Chief Keller right, in 2023, it goes up to $16 an hour.
That's
I'd
what
like
how I
that.
understood it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll
That's how I
second,
understood
yeah, I'll second that. If we have to do a motion, I'll second that. Otherwise, it was understood what you were saying.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that was
I can
understood.
amend my support to that motion as
Yeah,
well.
I don't even think it needs to be amended because I think that's how it was explained.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
Just
right.
wanted to I just wanted to
Yeah,
double
no,
check.
That's good.
I was
It's all
thinking
good.
about it. Thank you.
Thank you. I heard it the same way, so I think we're okay. Next item, Mr. O'Neill.
Yes, thank you again. Tonight you have before you for your acceptance the 2022 to 2027 capital improvement plan. This was at the Planning Commission on September 2nd for the required public hearing, at which time they unanimously adopted the CIP. And before you have Resolution 21-029, as well as the Planning Commission minutes from that meeting for your reference. I'll just quickly say that our CIP is a 6-year schedule of public physical improvements, which identifies the needs for major public infrastructure improvements and the sources of funding to make those improvements. It provides a schedule of expenditures for constructing, maintaining, upgrading, and or replacing the community's physical inventory. The CIP, therefore, is a tool to assess the long-term capital project requirements of White Lake Township. The Michigan Planning Enabling Act of 2008 requires a capital improvement program or plan for any township which owns or operates a water or sewer system. Since we own and operate and manage both, we are required to do this and have done so, I think, since the 2009 was adopted. So we continue to use the project threshold of $25,000 for everything that's found within this plan. This plan looks largely the same every year. We update the figures, projects, working with the departments, and so this should be pretty familiar to most of you. I would like to thank all the departments per usual for their cooperation and hard work on this, as well as the Planning Commission, and especially to the staff planner, Justin Quagliata, who does the lion's share of the updating on this. I appreciate his diligence on this and his careful editing. And, I'd like to sit here and tell you that I've done it all, but I've done a very small part of this. And so I want to thank him again publicly for all of his efforts and everyone else who was involved. So if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, this is before you for your acceptance.
Excuse me. Outstanding, Mr. O'Neill. As every year we state, this is the community wish list. So I know a lot of work and time went into this. Mr. Powell.
Yeah, I'm glad Sean kind of supplemented it a little bit. Otherwise, I was going to ask him what he meant by the sentence on 158. And but I'm kidding. I just wanted to compliment Mr. O'Neill and his staff. Before Director O'Neill took over, we used to have to hire this to be done, and we paid out of pocket to a consultant to do this. The planning staff has done a remarkable job, and you guys can tell just by the intensity and the completeness of this project here, how much work goes into it. And kudos to your staff, Sean, for this, and thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the board at this time or questions regarding the plan? If not, I'd like to entertain a motion. Mr. Roman.
I was looking at the next one, Rick, so I'm gonna bow out of that one because the next one is me.
Mr. Ruggles.
I'll make a motion, sure. Make a motion to approve resolution 21-029, the 2022-2027 capital improvement plan.
A motion, looking for support.
Support
from Mr. Powell. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Treasurer Roman,
Yeah.
Trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
Trustee Powell.
yes.
Motion carries. Mr. Roman, next one's yours.
Yeah, so our summer tax bill is all school related. We don't get to keep any of that money. And we do charge the local school districts for mailing out the tax bill, doing the assessing work, collecting the money, dispersing. We last negotiated with our school districts 5 years ago. We negotiated together with Commerce Township, Highland, and Milford Township with the school districts. It's kind of a big ordeal because all the treasurers put together slightly different analyses of their cost structures. And then we've always tried to negotiate first with Huron Valley Schools. And then once we've completed that, we go to the other districts. Over the last 5 years, we've got a big change in personnel. We've got new treasurers. We've got new school employees. And so in talking to the Commerce Township treasurer, we thought it would be worthwhile going to the schools to see if they would just extend at the current rate for another 5 years, avoid the negotiations. The negotiations are really over pennies, and we've got really good reception. So what I'm asking for today is to extend our contracts for 5 more years at the same rate per parcel of $5.40, and allow the supervisor to sign those agreements. There is a slight modification to the agreement that I provided in paragraph 3 that our attorney caught. And if you guys can look at that, it just needs to say that the $5.40 is per parcel, not for all parcels. Questions?
Good job, Mike. Any questions from the board? Seeing none, looking for a motion. Mr. Roman?
Motion to approve the agreement provided with the correction of per parcel instead of all parcels, to allow the supervisor to sign the amended agreement and to allow the supervisor to sign contracts with identical language and rate for the other 4 local school districts.
A motion, looking for support.
I'll support it.
Support from Mr. Noble. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Treasurer Roman,
Yes.
Trustee Powell,
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles.
Yes.
Motion carries. On to some older business. Chief Keller, this will be regarding second reading offenses against property trespass ordinance for section 26-88.
I don't have much from last month. It hasn't changed. I don't know if Lisa has any more comments. It's just updating it again with what the state law is.
I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Any comments, Counselor?
No, this went to first reading last month, and it's up for adoption today.
Okay. Looking for a motion? Mr. Roman?
Motion to approve second reading of the change to trespassing ordinance.
Looking for support?
Support.
Mr. Powell? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Powell,
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
Treasurer Roman,
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Supervisor Kowal.
Yes. Thank you. Next item, excuse me, is a request for approval of DLC Engineering Services proposal for drinking water revolving fund, Aspen Meadows Iron Filtration Plant, and Huron Valley Schools Bogalick Water Main. As you all know, we were successful in acquiring our DWRF funding, and thanks to Mr. Potter and his very hard work, and Mr. Lufkin for their contribution in this project. This is not anything new. This was all part of this original proposal. This is just now putting it in a technical order for the DWRF drinking fund so that we can move forward. Mr. Potter, do you care to elaborate?
Aaron, you're muted.
I'll get used to this sooner or later. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor, and good evening, members of the board. So Mr. Supervisor is correct. We were successful in acquiring our financing through DWRF. For, I don't want to call this housekeeping purposes, but basically for public record, back in, let's see, March of 2020, we brought to the board two proposals, one for engineering services and construction engineering, design engineering services and construction engineering services for each portion of the DWRF project, which would include Aspen Meadows well house improvements and the Bogey Lake water main extension to serve Lakeland Valley, Lakeland High School. And at that time, considering that we had not yet been approved by DWRF, we did not approve the engineering services for construction and contract documentation management. So I'm bringing these both to you tonight for approval. These will be the last step. We're expecting our notice to proceed from the state in October. And then we'll be off and running. So once we get that and we get these proposals approved, we will have all of our documentation in a row to begin that project. Would like to note that this is old business. These are a second half to proposals that were submitted to you roughly a year and a half ago. And these were identified in the, from the project plan back in 2019, all the way up through the Exhibit A that was submitted to DWRF last month as part of the loan closing. So these are budgeted funds that they've been in the budget for the project from the beginning. These are not new pricing. These are 2019 Johnson and Anderson pricing. Mr. Powell, or Trustee Powell, you're quite an expert on construction. Typically, these types of projects are based on a percentage of the overall project cost. In this case, our project cost did increase because of the bids that we received for the Aspen Meadows portion of the project, mostly due to increases in material costs due to COVID shortages. However, these proposals have not increased. These are the same numbers that were in the 2019 budget for the DWRF project plan. So what I'm asking for tonight is for the Board of Trustees to approve the construction engineering sections of both DLZ proposals, the Drinking Water Revolving Fund, Aspen Meadows Iron Filtration Plant, and Huron Valley Schools Bogey Lake Water Main Extension, not to exceed $478,428.88, which is $451,348 from the budget for the plan, plus the 6% contingency, which was also in the budget as required by DWRF. I'd also like the board to approve the township supervisor to execute these agreements.
Questions or comments?
Questioning.
If there is no comments, I'd like to make the motion.
If I could, I did have two comments, please.
Go ahead, Mr. Powell.
All right. First of all, I did, and thank you, Mr. Potter, for summarizing all of that. And I apologize that I didn't maybe sharpen my pencil quite enough. I did want to point out to everyone that this is an hourly contract, and so it's not a lump sum, which is perfect. They should be paid for the work that they do, and hopefully it's a great deal less, because my contention is because piping went up doesn't mean that the engineering goes up. And so they've added a 6% contingency because we anticipated an increase in construction costs, but unless they make pipe, there should be no increase to engineering because the pipe went up. And so I'm looking forward to them billing this hourly and coming in a great deal less than these numbers. I guess I had a question though, and the numbers in the 2020 proposals seem to come in at $430,590, and this is up to $478,000. And so I missed it. I missed something in there. And there's no way I'm going to make people go back and look at it now because I didn't do my homework earlier. But I was just curious, but I feel very comfortable no matter what the number is. They're going to bill us fairly by the hour and not a lump sum and percent construction cost. And therefore I'm good with this, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. Mr. Potter?
Yeah, I'd just like to add that, like I said, the 6% contingency is required by DWRF on all of the DWRF projects. So that's why we arrived at 6% contingency. That's by no means, an indication that we intend to eat into that. It's required to get this funding from them, so we included it in there.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments from the board at this time? Seeing none, looking for a motion, Mr.
I'll make a motion. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Powell. Trustee Powell.
By all means, board, I move that we approve the DLZ Engineering Services proposal for the Drinking Water Revolving Fund, Aspen Meadows Iron Filtration Plant, and Huron Valley Schools Bogey Lake Water Main Extension at a price not to hourly, at an hourly rate for the total amount not to exceed $478,428.88.
Motion, looking for support. Mr. Roman?
I'd like to ask Mr. Powell to amend his motion to allow the supervisor to execute the agreements.
Thank you. Yes, I forgot that little bit of homework there.
Caveat.
I'll support that.
I'll support it.
Your motion, support, roll call vote.
Supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
Treasurer Roman,
Yes.
Clerk Noble. Yes. Trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
Trustee Powell.
Yes.
Motion carries. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Potter, thanks for all your hard work. I certainly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.
And Mike
Thank you,
Lufkin,
Aaron.
Mr. Lufkin, wherever you went. Okay.
Yep, I'm here, board. I'd like to thank you. It is the goal to accomplish the projects in the most efficient manner possible, and it is an hourly proposal. So as we did on the Hillview project, we were able to come in under budget during COVID on that. On the construction administration side, I think we're about $17,000 under that budget. So that's the hope. So appreciate it.
Thanks, Mr.
Thank you, guys.
Lufkin.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay, thank you very much. Next item on our list of old businesses, our monthly discussion on regarding remote township board meeting versus in-person meetings. We have seen a change in the COVID market, so to speak. And of course, now they're talking about a third booster, and that conversation will go on for some time as to whatever that's going to be. But nonetheless, I think we need to kind of consider getting back to try to have things as normal as possible. It would be nice to be able to meet with our public when we can and things of that nature. I know that people have been nerve-wracked by this, especially when you talk to seniors. You'll see some of them are very nerve-wracked, and they may not come out. And I've run into other individuals that weren't even close to being seniors, and they were very cautiously optimistic that we are on a downhill run, so to speak, of this. But that remains to be seen. But nonetheless, we currently have some meetings that are electronic and that were set as requirement by statute for certain dates that would still run throughout the month of this month, rather, that we have to maintain the way that we do, because a couple of them have been posted. So my thought would be that we would suspend the emergency order that we have related to COVID. So I would propose a motion to, excuse me, propose a motion to lift the state of emergency due to COVID and resume meetings on October 1st, 2021. And that would be my thought process. The one bulletin in the communique that you received, or you should have all received, was that equipment is still back ordered and will not be available until November 1st.
Rick?
Yes.
I just met with Third Coast Tech today. They stopped in and they got the equipment now. I guess it came in sooner than expected and they're ready to begin install next week.
Okay, good. Good. Let me get started on that. There's going to be some.
That just literally happened before I left, so I didn't have a chance to communicate it.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. So any questions or comments from the board?
So that's going to give us like a hybrid option?
No.
No, it's all face to face. It's one or the other, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
There was a legal opinion that went out on the hybrid that you got from the council, and they don't believe that it is a
Yeah, I agree. Okay.
proper
Thank
way
you.
to go. I don't plan on challenging it or being challenged. Mr. Noble.
Yeah, I would like to thank our attorney for presenting that legal opinion. It's very interesting and well written. And I'm looking forward to going back. I've had many conversations with the other trustees, especially Trustee Powell. And I think it's time that we go back October. And I'm looking forward to seeing everybody.
Okay, Mr. Roman.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Rick. I'm so ready to get back to in-person meetings. And I will say to my fellow board members and to all of our residents, if you feel that you want to wear a mask to the meeting, I totally respect it and welcome it.
Yep.
Okay, Lisa.
Just one issue that has come up in other communities. So we might want to confirm with Mr. O'Neill, if he's still on, that there have been no meetings published for say October, that you're going to have to renotice or republish for in-person versus electronic.
Yeah, I kind of touched on that in my conversation, so we can follow up with that because we do have a few that are still going to be electronic within this month. And we'll have to, I can't tell you exactly what they are, but we'll have to look into it.
Well, and you could, if you terminate the emergency today, for example, then those meetings can't happen electronically.
No, I wouldn't terminate it today. It terminated at the end of the month.
Okay.
That was my proposal. That I would terminate the proposed motion to lift the state of emergency for COVID and resume meetings October 1st.
Yeah, because
And-
Janine did post the truth and taxation meeting for
Correct.
September, so we have to have that meeting to
Still have to do that. Yeah.
meet the deadlines.
Okay. Trustee Smith.
Mr. Supervisor, I just want to thank Lisa. We had some great conversations, productive conversations that sparked a well-written document to the board. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. Thanks to my fellow board members for considering this issue and taking such consideration. I'm glad to see some interesting change of minds. My stance on this is government overreach. So I'm not in favor of that when the state has is not putting any limitations on us. I think it's overreach for our local board to implement them. So I look forward to seeing you all in October. This has nothing to do with our personal beliefs. You know, if somebody on this board wants to wear a mask, by all means they should, and the public should as well. And I'm glad to see that we can come to a resolve on this, that everybody feels comfortable and we are, you know, this is not personal. That disheartened me a little bit last month when it got personal, because it certainly isn't amongst our board. Everybody should feel comfortable. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Any other comments? Okay, that I'd like to take my motion as I stated it, looking for support.
I'll support it.
Thank you, Mr. Noble. Roll call vote.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Trustee Powell,
Going to shoot myself in the foot. Probably the first vacation in a year and a half. I'm going to be gone for the October meeting, but yes,
How about that?
incredible.
Trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Treasurer Roman,
Yes.
Supervisor Kowal.
Yes. Motion carries. And Mike, if you were around me tonight, you wouldn't want to be around me tonight.
I'm around you close enough right now, Rick.
Yeah,
I
we
can
can
always
see
track,
that.
I can always track you down and give you a big kiss.
I'll bet I can outrun you still.
Okay, next item is going to some discussion regarding township policies and procedure on communication. Now, before we get into this, a few things that I would like to address the board that, you know, the interesting thing about communication is that depending on where you were in a point in time, you would find out that we probably, this particular board and my office has been probably the, what I'll call the masters of communication versus the silent realm. You know, one of the things that we did was to initially put, and I came to the board, and when it was a little bit of a challenge, was to get the digital sign so we could communicate with the public and with each other and put whatever we needed up there about the different township things, meetings, events, and all of the above that were out there. So we worked collaboratively to move that forward, and we still get comments on that. And every now and then I get a call when it's stuck. It goes in a cycle, and then Tricia's got to decipher it. But for the most part, it has served us well and continues to do so. And many people rely on it for general information and how hot or how cold it is in White Lake Township. So that's an important thing. The next thing we did, we began a Facebook presence, something of which this township did not really have a very good presence. And put that out there to keep people communicated within the township for the different township events and all of those things that are related to Facebook. The next thing that we did was start a process to redevelop a website that I might add was very difficult, was not consumer friendly. It just was not a great place to be. And that took some extended period of time. So as you know, my office has been working to increase communications overall since I've been here, with adding of the digital sign, website, and now additional secretary in our office, which would be most helpful. I've only had 2 persons in my office now for a grand total of 8 days. Okay, so let's give it a chance. So I believe we are working in the right direction regarding being able to increase communications to the board. I do also want to point out that everyone at the township has been working in some very extreme circumstances. It's called a pandemic, 18 months. Due to the pandemic, and not to mention throwing a tornado. Now, all I need is a flood and pestilence, and I'll have had it all. Moses and I will have a lot in common. I like that, Mike. You know I'm right. I believe in the past, when events have come to my office, has made every effort to notify the board in the events which are appropriate. The pandemic, these activities came to a screeching halt. Therefore, there wasn't really a whole lot to inform you about in certain things. We're just starting to open back up, and recently Trish sent out an invite for ribbon cuttings of 4 corners and for the Lake Stereo luncheon. Kelly sent out an invite for the E-Magic and whatever else is coming along with it. Having said that, I have no issue with adding some additional policies specifying the supervisor's office will send all appropriate invitations to the board as they are received. You got to realize the policy that we have was written long before any of us were even here. So it's just something, it's pre-internet, it's pre-cell phone, it's pre a lot of things. It's never been really looked at, as from time to time we look at different policies and things that we have. So there may be some invitations that are, not intended for the board members, and there may be some that are, additional. No issue adding something to the policy regarding proclamation and special recognitions, or having the board member sign them if they choose to do so. Timeline will need to be met because it will be, oftentimes we have a very small window. So there may be some constraints from Mr. Noble's office to try to get these things out there in a timely manner. And if persons are requested to come in and do it and they can't make it, they should not take offense that their name may or may not be on it. Okay. So I would like to see that, Lisa and Trish will work together to put some policy wording together to be brought back to the board for a first reading. Some of the proposed language that was out there now is a little bit restrictive. Wordings like shall and may and the board shall approve not really is what should be done. we're binding future boards and putting restrictions on people and creating a situation where certain persons may or may not be responsible or can't possibly be responsible for every communique that takes place. So I would recommend that we hear a little out from the boards to kind of take it from there. You know, we're working with the employees to get everybody to know what's going on and get on track. And we have been communicating as always, and even more so now, because we do have the staff in my office. So if I'm looking for comment and or feedback from the board at this time. Andrea Voorhees.
No, I agree with Rick to a certain aspect. That office has needed support for, in a sense, my entire career. The supervisor's office in my lifetime has never really had 2 staff members that I can even remember. So we have to give them a chance to get involved with all these things and get caught up. Our mail, if we even had the opportunity, our personal mail we get to the township has a lot of the ribbon cuttings. My full-time job doesn't allow me to get out there as much as I would like to get all these things, but at the same time, I can't attend all these things. So I'm okay with the communications that I'm getting. I have a tendency to, on my car drives during my workday, to call up to the supervisor's office and say, hey, what's going on? I do that to other departments too. So I'm okay with what's going on. I don't really think we need to micromanage Rick's office ever. We also need to give the new staffs or the current staff that's new the chance to figure it out.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Roman.
I will say that a second body, Rick, in your office is welcomed. My team, I can't even tell you how many people come to our counter that want to talk to the supervisor's office. So I welcome having a second person there. I think it's going to be really a huge help. Problem with one staff person is they go to lunch, they have places they have to be, and it's really great to see that additional help in your office. That said, I just want the board to know my problem is the opposite. I get so many invitations to things, and most of them are junk emails. To try to sort that all out is insane. I get ribbon cuttings for all of the surrounding communities. I get invitations to webinars for all kinds of events. So I agree with Rick in that, you know, to sort out every invitation and to let the board know about, you know, everything that's going on out there is going to be information overload. And I don't think any of us want that. But I think your idea is good, Rick. Maybe have Lisa look at something that can be done with the language. I'd certainly be receptive to it.
Again, there's no opposition to some revision as we from time to time revise different things as we do throughout the township. Again, this is something that really hasn't been updated for quite some time. So there are things that are out there to look at. Trustee Smith?
So this is my agenda item request, so I appreciate the opportunity to speak on it. You mentioned the sign and Facebook and website, and those are all great tools that this board has updated technology-wise, but they communicate to the public and not necessarily the board. And you threw in the commentary of the tornado, and that's an example. There was some communication that could have been improved even during the tornado to the board. So there has been more communication from the supervisor's office to the board since I sent this agenda request and memo out. I'm disappointed that the language isn't part of our board packet. My memo and request is not attached, so I hope everybody has it in case you'd like to. I know you all have it, I sent it to you, so that we can discuss it. It most certainly was a starting point because last month that's what we talked about, and Treasurer Roman asked me to, get something together, paper, a starting point of language. I let all of you know in that communication that this was just a starting point, and I was open to your input and dialogue and discussion on it, so that we did have a policy that we all agreed upon and felt comfortable with. But it was a starting point because we had to start somewhere to have language to vote on. As far as the tributes, I gave a secondary email that I understand, and I think everybody does, that would be an effort made. We understand that not all of us can come to those. Not all of us would be able to sign every single one, but perhaps that was just something that was discussed last month, that we would like the opportunity to sign it and be a part of it if we're able to. But I certainly understand if somebody can't come in, things happen. So that was kind of like a secondary discussion that we had last month, that tributes would at least like to make an effort, please. And then, I'm just looking for, if you can let one person know on this board, you can let all people know. So I'm just looking, like forward. We don't need long explanations. We don't need to take time out of the supervisor's office for, explanations. We can all understand, just forward us whatever and we can figure it out. And if we have questions, then we can ask. The majority, I went back and read the minutes and I watched the meeting. The majority of this board asked and agreed that we need more communication. And why I did ask for it now is we do have a second person in the supervisor's office. So it was discussed with Ms. Hamami and myself that this would be an appropriate time to amend the policy, because perhaps we could make it part of a job description, or just time to amend the policy. We talked about it over a year ago in 2020, and we didn't get it down in writing. So this is maybe a good time to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Powell.
First of all, I want to just state that this is in no judgment of you, Rick. Rick Kowal's office has been more communicative than any of the supervisors that I've served under. And so he makes it a point to communicate with me, with all of us. And so I'm not at all bringing this up because of Rick Kowal's and his office. But the previous supervisors that I've served with have deliberately left trustees out and only shared information that they've wanted the trustees to know, even to the point to where if a trustee wants something on and requests something to be added to an agenda, they have not done it. And short of the board making a motion to force them to do something, and even some of those have been ignored. That's why I guess I am a little bit more inclined to forcing the issue, just to make sure that the supervisor's office does in fact keep the trustees informed of some things. And Mike Roman, you're absolutely correct. We get all kinds of invitations all around. But if something is specifically inviting the trustees of White Lake Township to a White Lake Township event, by golly, you know what? I'd really like to know about it. And again, if it's just forwarded to us, for heaven's sakes, then we can decide whether to go to it or not. As far as a tribute, Anthony, if all of our names were there and we were to call and say, or somebody from your office call and say, we've got this tribute here, maybe we can provide a stamp for us, but at least on the tribute, your fellow board members are listed on there as well. And if we have to have a stamp of our name, so be it, because we can't get up there, but at least we're being recognized as part of the board, and we'd like to give a tribute to the people in the township as well. So that being said, I would very much like to have a modification of the requirements so that we can in fact point out to future supervisors who might want to keep things a secret that no, you can't. The ordinance doesn't allow you to do that. And I've been toying, and maybe I'd like some discussion on this. There's got to be communications and letters that are sent to the supervisor's office informing the supervisor of things going on. And it'd be nice if we had a heads up on some of those that might impact the future decisions and deliberations of the board ahead of time, so we know that there's trouble out there and we might be able to have some input on it. But I'm in favor of making some changes, and I have no problem with Rick, you and your staff making some suggestions. But I think it's important for the supervisor to make sure that his fellow board members are informed and have a day-to-day interest in what goes on in the township.
And I couldn't agree with you more, Mike. And you and I've had many conversations.
Many.
Yeah, so, Mr. Noble. Oh, excuse me, Mr. Noble, I just got a ping. Just got a ping from Tricia Pergament. She would like to say something. I'd like to address the board. Trish?
Good evening, everybody. I just wanted to say that I take communications very seriously to the board. But as you know, it's been spread thin there between a pandemic and a tornado. The volume of calls that I took for 6 weeks after that tornado would make you surprised that I even got my work done, and I don't say that lightly. And counseling people through issues, some of which I try, we could help, some we couldn't. Timing everything just right, trying to get contractors out to help with some of the cleanup and waiting for information from the county to see about reimbursement. It was a very tricky time, as was the onset of the pandemic and working through multiple changes daily from the governor. So if we weren't as communicative as we could have been, that along with the workload, it was difficult. Although I don't know of things that I haven't personally tried to pass on to you, and I've been aware of them. I can't think of anything that we would ever purposefully not share with you, and I take pride in trying to do that. Having said that, adding Kelly to the office will definitely improve that, because it'll give me some relief so that we can actually have discussions about what more kinds of communications can happen with the board. And I don't think it's a problem saying that we should communicate to the board in the policy, but I think we need a chance to, to make that realization now that we've got the added staff member, because it's not, there's nothing going on here that we don't want to communicate. We certainly do. And I think that with Kelly on the staff, we'll be able to do, an improved job with that.
Okay, thank you, Tricia. Mr. Noble?
I'd like to thank everybody bringing this up in Liz's email. The thing that I'm adamantly against is I came from the world of very restrictive policy in the police and fire world. When you use words such as shall, may, must, you're restricting, you're putting handcuffs on the future supervisors or people in charge. To Mike Roman's point, that is restrictive. We don't want that. Each one of us have an obligation to one another, not just one, all of us, to communicate. We had the library function the other day. I was at another event. I did not find out until I looked at the Facebook. I was fine with that. But my office tries to put that out. And to your point, Trustee Powell, absolutely. When I was on a task force, there's a lot of times I couldn't get in contact with my chief for signatures. So I had his authorization through a stamp. But that is a legal question that I would have to ask Lisa, as far as getting authorization in a written form that gives me permission to use your signature on a document. That I don't know. I'm not an attorney, but I'm all for what was said tonight. But when we put restrictive language, I'm against it. It handcuffs us. Also, it is the supervisor's statutory authority to interpret and to communicate and run the day-to-day through the employees. I sit here every day and I watch one person in that office, and she was buried. And that was a person that just was speaking. I mean, buried. I mean, I couldn't take it. She was been here after 5:30, 6 o'clock at night. Headaches, I'm sure, just like I have them. You're buried in paperwork. So we're human. We're gonna miss things. That's what we are. I think we have to be forgiving on that, one another, and work as a team. And I encourage the language that was said, but not restrictive. And last, when I came into the office, as far as those signatures, that was what was recovered. As soon as that was brought to my attention, I corrected it. I brought it to the board meeting. I was able to, and Liz noted that, and I appreciate that in her email. But I think we all work hard for the same direction. And with Kelly being in there now, the Supervisor Kowal's office, that office should have had somebody in there a couple of years ago, if you want to ask my opinion. It's not fair to not only everybody on the board, but it's not fair to our residents. And especially it's not fair to put the illness on Supervisor Kowal or take him out of it, any future supervisor when staff members there. So I think we're moving in the right direction, and those are my comments. And again, I want to thank the staff in the supervisor's office.
Mr. Ruggles?
Any further, I just want to clarify language that was talked about because I think it was misinterpreted. So the purpose in my proposed language to say that the board could choose is that very reason not to bind future supervisors and boards so that it worked for the future and current supervisor's office. So there might not always be two people there in the future. Hopefully there are to best serve our township and residents, but that was my thought process behind having the board, each board decide what person worked best. Because say there is no Kelly in a term or two in the future. So that was my thought. I just want to clarify that. It wasn't to bind, it was actually to give more room in that. And then again, just to reiterate, the reason why I brought it up for starting this conversation now is because there is a second person. We could put the policy in place and move forward.
And to your point, to that is switch the roles. If one of us were in his shoes, we're binding that person for, I think you're setting them up for failure, because then you're asking them to be absolute perfect if something goes through. When you say shall in that language,
No,
you're
misinterpreting. So for example, maybe a future board, maybe a future clerk wants to handle communication or somebody else. So I'm okay with changing. I don't think we should bind the particular person that gives out the information. It was just a suggestion that it might work well for the second person in the supervisor's office to be responsible in their job description to do that. But maybe in the future, the clerk wants to be the communicator or HR or somebody else. So as I said in the beginning, it was a starting point of language.
Yeah.
That's why we want to discuss it, but we had to start somewhere.
Yeah, and to your point, I appreciate that. And it was great that you put that out there. But I'm adamantly against shall, must, may. When you use those words such as the domestic violence statute, it says shall. That gives, if you push your spouse,
right, it means that you have to do it. It's strong language in a policy.
Yeah,
and you have to do it.
Yeah, and you're binding when you put those words in there. And I articulate that by looking at that.
Okay, Mr. Roman had his hand.
Yeah, Liz, I think ultimately Rick has to be responsible for communications. Whether he sends it out, Kelly sends it out, Trish sends it out, Rick's responsible. That's his staff. He's got to manage that.
Supervisor's office, period.
Yeah. As far as the gist of your email, I thought it was great. Okay. And I remember, I don't remember specifically, but you mentioned three pieces. There were three things. There were significant events. What were the other two? Tributes.
And then anything that happened like major in the township, like maintenance to the building or any kind of disaster, emergency, something like that.
Totally agree with you. I thought it was great. Here's the problem with trying to write ordinance. Ask Mike Powell what happened when we tried to write and amend simple ordinances that we thought were simple, but I already see him agreeing. Once we got into it, there were so many different interpretations, additional questions, and problems with trying to come up with that wording. And so what I say to you is the merits of what you want to do, I'm totally with you, but I think Lisa should be the one that implements the writing.
So just to stop you before we get too far, not to confuse anybody, it's not an ordinance. It's the policy handbook, the administrative policy handbook.
It's
not an ordinance.
It's still a
guideline
and restriction.
I just want to clarify that we're not talking about an ordinance.
Yeah, you listed it in your email under 2.0. at the end at 2.4.
Yeah, it's like our
Um,
personnel handbook.
Same thing, ordinance, policy, whatever.
And Liz,
Supervisor
it's
Cole?
different.
I
One at a
appreciate
time,
it.
one at
I
a time.
appreciate what you're doing there.
Counselor,
Oh, I can break up.
excuse
Go ahead.
me. Lisa,
So I
I'm saying-
CC'd Lisa into it so that she could.
excuse me,
give
excuse me, Miss Smith.
advice.
Excuse me, Miss Smith. Lisa
Well, I
Hamani
need
has,
to be able to
Lisa
finish a
has,
sentence.
Lisa has the floor for the moment.
So between the meeting, in the past, Trustee Smith has asked for communication. I understand the supervisor's office feels that they have been communicating, understanding that during 2020, at least since March of 2020, there's been very little going on. I know that recently there were some events which triggered this. Listening to the comments that were made at the last meeting and the comments that were made at this meeting, as well as discussions that I've had with a number of the board members, I think that a simple amendment to the policies that would require any proclamations, tributes, and awards that the township board be notified prior to awarding, distributing, announcing any of those things. The next item that we would add in the policies would be a notification of invites of all township events and community events that the supervisor is aware of. I think that those things in the policy should not be offensive. It's not too onerous, and it gives the supervisor's office then the ability to move forward with the other little things that you think that this Board of Trustees wants to know about once they have their new staff in place and they have their new procedures in place. I think you're going to see a change. I just want to add, this is probably the first Board of Trustees that wants this kind of information. I mean, you have boards all over the place and some are totally content. In fact, a previous board member who's now a supervisor was one of those people. Like, I don't think that Rick would have even wanted all of the detail. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's just getting used to the change of what has always been the way things were. And I think that I commend the supervisor's office for making the efforts that they have. And I've already talked to the supervisor about adding these items that I think, for lack of a better term, are no-brainers to put in the policy. And I think everyone's on board with that. And then we can always revisit the policy at a later date if you're not satisfied with the changes that the supervisor's office is making.
Lisa, I have one question for you. I have one question. So if we agree on those stamps, so I'm not, everybody has jobs, Trustee Voorhees and Trustee Ruggles and, the trustees, all in General Smith and Powell. I agree with the stamp. If I can't get them to come in or something happens, do I need a legal binding signature from them? Because I just don't want to use their signature and then have it come back and I didn't give you authorization. I mean, is there something procedurally that we need to do? Because that's a great idea, Trustee Powell. I didn't think of that.
Well, I'm
Thank you
sure
for
that I'm sure that there is an agreement that can be put in, that we can draft that authorizes use of the stamp for proclamations, awards, or something. If that's what,
specific to that, because I want it to be everybody's name on there, but I know there's times people are on vacations and we have a deadline, and I think that's just a terrific idea.
Anthony, as far as what goes in the policy, I would not want to put anything that detailed or specific in the policy for a number of reasons. One, you might have a future board that doesn't want to do that. You might have a board that wants to just leave the elected officials' names on these proclamations and not have any of the other names.
You could put a date on it.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that you do that. I'm suggesting just put to the end of the term, or however, to the end of the term. So once we're on agreement.
My suggestion that the policy says that any tributes, proclamations, or awards that the supervisor shall notify all of the Board of Trustees. What you do logistically to get the signatures and drafting the resolution itself, I don't think that needs to be in the policy. That's
I do not either. What I'm saying is I want something, because I do not want it to come back on my office using somebody's signatures for that and say, well, I didn't give you authorization. I believe and we sign it and we're not putting it in a policy, but then we're on agreement in writing that that's what we do. Because each one of us might have a funeral, somebody might be sick, something could happen. And I want that to be in there. So we don't have this future discussion and we put it to bed.
All right, so I'm gonna recommend that Lisa, you take a look at some of the different things that you've heard here, and I liked some of the things that you said, and you come up with something and we can kind of bounce it back and forth and then bring it forth to the board at a future meeting and make an amendment to the policy. So
Can I ask you a question? Did you get the second email I sent? Because I was just talking about like general language, like effort, could be made so that it's not, of course, not everybody can come in. So if your effort is made, that can kind of be up to your office of what that effort is. Are you contacting us to come in person, or we agree that you can use a stamp if we're not available? So the policy shouldn't be
We're not going to do
restrictive on it.
I don't think we need a policy for that. What I'm saying
Like the
is
policy in the handbook, but it would be your own judgment within your office of how
my own
protect
judgment,
us.
the way I would like it, which is fair and equitable to everybody else, is if you can't make it, we do a stamp.
Mhm.
Because otherwise, I'm going to put out an email. You've got till Wednesday to be here. If you don't, we're going back to the 3 in-house officials, and I'm going to have an email, and I'm going to state that it's going to be a paper trail. So to be fairness to everybody on the board, I want to be fair and equitable. We all come in, we sign this. It ends at the 20. It's only for proclamations, not mortgage documents or bank documents. I'm using your signature. That way it's fair. And then that takes this argument out. We're done. I mean, I think that's the best way. We don't need to put it in a policy. I just want everybody to be on the same
This
page.
detail shouldn't be in the policy of the administration. I agree with you.
Correct.
I didn't
And so
ask it to be in.
But to protect myself and my deputy and my staff, we draft something that states just that we have authorization to use that stamp just on proclamations. That way I don't get accused of using it on Fifth Third Bank for a car loan, or not that that's going to happen, but crazier things have happened in this world. So I'm looking to protect ourselves.
You can have Douglas notarize it.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. So
Got a stamp.
if you
It's
and
got a
Lisa
new
want to
tractor.
draft something that you feel comfortable with,
I'm going to let Lisa, I'm going to defer to our legal counsel on that. Just something really simple. We all sign and we can move forward.
Okay, so with what being said, I would like to just authorize the township attorney to move forward with this particular item and to compile some information and some options and bring it back to the board for further review. That's it.
right? So when I talked to Lisa, just to understand it correctly, she's gonna take some of the proposed language and this discussion tonight, mesh it together, and bring us a first reading in the future. Correct?
Something to that effect. We're going to look at what was said tonight and what's been proposed, and we'll take it from there. Everybody put it in their 2
Are
cents.
we in agreement on the general idea of the policy being like, communication to tributes, events, and then anything like a major disaster that happened, like maintenance or an emergency?
Yes.
You were notified when
Yes.
the tornado hit. Once we had some communication, you had to realize in the particular case of the tornado, there was no internet, there was no cell phone service, there was nothing.
Yep.
If you didn't have a fire or police radio or smoke screen, you weren't going to communicate with anybody for 3 days in White Lake Township.
I'm not just saying the tornado. I'm just like something future happens and
Rick
any board in the
agrees,
future.
Liz.
Yeah.
He
I'm sorry.
agrees.
You agree? Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All
Move
right.
to adjourn. Oh, too early. Okay.
Not yet. We still got ways to go. Okay. All right. So we're going to, council, you have direction. Okay. All right. Next item. FYI on the generator. Interesting thing. I'd solicited 4 vendors that we do business with in the township, and all of them came in, all except one. One did not return my call. Imagine that in this environment, Mr. Powell. And they came in and reviewed the situation at hand, and all stated that they felt that the generator was underpowered and tired. Okay. A couple of them did certain things and a couple of them did other things. And I don't have a prepared package to give you yet because I don't have all the information, and I don't feel it would be fair to all the bidders to divulge that information at this time. However, there was an interesting quirk that did come up, and Mr. Powell, you will understand this immediately. If you do development, you build electrical systems to the need of the particular project. And one of the things that not everyone can nail down exactly as to what the power capacity is going to be of a future building. So that seems to be questioning. The best case scenario was utilizing the current concept plan for the public safety building because that's more defined, square footage, they're all calcs based on that. And 150 kVW unit they felt would be adequate to power that particular building for most of its needs. However, this is where the quirk comes in. When the township building was built, it was built initially under an old Delta system, okay? And the preferred and new wiring that you're going to have throughout any building in the township, new building, is a Y system. So therefore, the winding on a generator and the alternator on a generator has to be set up specifically for a Delta or Y. They do not make multi-tap generators. I can't believe they don't do it in this day and age. But to yet, I have not been able to find a manufacturer that makes one. So we do have some people continuing to look for that, because if we bought a new, as the board's initial thoughts were, it makes sense, buy a new generator here and then move it over to one of the other facilities. The difficult.
Oh, shucks.
Lost him. Froze.
It's like Star Trek.
Am I there? Am I not froze?
You're
back.
Captain,
We
yes,
can
you
hear
are.
you.
We can hear you, but you're frozen.
All right, well.
It's a nice, there you go.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, sorry about that. So at any rate, I'm still.
Can you start over? I'm just kidding you. I froze him up
He's
again.
froze him.
He needs a new generator in his house. It's gonna be a Y generator. It's really a 3-phase is what yeah.
Earth to Rick. Wasn't he talking about possibly renting?
Yeah,
a
basically
generator?
what Supervisor Cole was talking about, this building is from the 60s, 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and et cetera, et cetera. It's been add-on, band-aided up. Mike Powell, you know that. You probably the longest. Andrea, you know that. Trustee Powell and Voorhees. We don't have the capability to buy it. If we buy a generator right now just for this building, it will not fit the next building, basically, is what Rick is saying.
Right.
And I'm not an electrician. Scott, you probably understand this more. I get the basics of it. So what he's proposing is that we lease for the next couple of years, 3 years. I think it would be advantageous for us to do that. We're not throwing good money after bad. If we bought a generator here and then, 3-4 years from now, we're in a new building. So
Does anybody know what the size of the current generator is?
Trustee Powell, I believe he talked to you, didn't he, about that?
No, I do not know the specifics.
Oh.
He had mentioned it, but I don't remember. I don't offhand, but I know it will not convert like we thought it would to the next building that we're in. So it would not be wise to do so.
You're back, Rick.
We can see you and hear you.
Okay. Anyway, no, that's part of the problem, Scott. And the winding on the current generator is 20-some years old, and they lose a certain amount over time. But nonetheless, I'm still working on it. And one of the things that I may propose is we do a lease just for a couple of years to tide us over versus spending that kind of. So, but that's just an update I'll give you right now. And as I get more information, I will forward it to you. Okay. Any other questions on it?
No, just make sure that the lease isn't more than buying a temporary one and then reselling it.
I was just going to bring that up.
Look at all the options. The board will obviously have to approve it regardless, because the expenditure will be to the level of which will have to be approved by the board. Okay.
Rick, I have one question for you. While you're looking into leasing those, is it possible for you to explore the cost of a new or leasing one for Fire Station 2 as well? Because they're in need of one.
It's part of my package I'm doing.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Trying to find a vendor that will work with us collaboratively and knowing that they will have multiple generators out of this particular deal.
Yeah,
So-
and leasing one for them might work because we might move them around, like possibly we've talked about them going into the Dublin Center in the future, Station 2, or so just if you could ask while you're doing your homework, that'd be great.
Thank you very much.
I think the big concern right now is we have to get the generator here in case another catastrophe happens because our 911 system's critical. Now, I spoke with a friend, it's a lieutenant colonel in charge of telecom that just retired from the Marine Corps. You'd have to drop, and it's affordable for us, antennas above the tree line in 3 specific locations in a triangle within the township if that happened. As you're aware, we have Sean O'Neill that's going to be part of that team that came out to help us, which is awesome for the township. So we need to get that fixed here immediately, and that's what we're working on, and we're trying to get as fast and then start addressing those problems.
We'll work through that. Okay. We still have a closed session that we have to go into tonight. So if there are any more questions at the moment, I'd like to move forward to that executive session. Okay, seeing as none, I'd like to approve in the recess and the closed session for strategy and negotiation sessions connected with negotiation of collective bargaining agreement. If either negotiating party requests a closed hearing in accordance with MCL 15.268C. And that being said, I need a roll call vote. Well, that is a motion.
A correction,
Yes,
just a
go ahead.
correction. That was C, letter C.
I did say C.
Oh, I heard D, I'm
For that
sorry.
motion,
C. That is a motion looking for support.
support.
For motion support, roll call vote, Mr. Clerk.
Trustee Powell,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
Treasurer Roman. Treasurer Roman,
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Supervisor Kowal.
Okay, at this time, we're going to go into executive session.
Lisa, she had her hand up, the attorney.
Supervisor Kowal, I just asked that maybe Brian Wittes explain to the members of the public who may be in attendance how they could either remain on or have to sign off and sign back on and sitting in a waiting room. I don't know how you do that logistically so that people can come back on once the township board is out of their closed session.
Sure. There are no callers in the meeting at the moment, so the only viewers or members of the public would be on YouTube, and they can continue to watch. I'll have a slide up saying that we're in closed session, and then when the board comes back, we can return to the live feed.
Thank you, Brian.
So would you like to go to the breakout room now?
Right.
All right. All right, Kathy. Got us out of there.
Make a motion to leave the executive session, right?
Rick, you're
Everyone.
muted.
Everyone's muted.
Yeah, you come in muted, guys.
What the heck?
Hi, can you hear me?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, then moving on, what I'd like to have a motion to move forward with the proposed retirement agreement between the firefighter and the township. That is a motion. Looking for support.
Support.
Support from Mr. Ruggles, Mr. Noble. Roll call vote.
Supervisor Kowal. Supervisor Kowal. Clerk Noble, yes. Treasurer Roman.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Trustee Ruggles.
Yes.
Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees.
Yes.
Trustee Powell.
Yes.
Okay, that's very much everyone. Trustee comments. Mr. Powell, I'm going to start with you.
All right, no, thank you. And thank you for a great meeting, guys. Despite the fact that we disagree, we come back around and we agree to take some action. And I thought it was a very good, productive meeting. The only thing I want to just inform you guys about is that Supervisor Kowal and I had a meeting with the Commerce Township supervisor, engineer, and building official regarding the talks for the sanitary sewer system agreement, the intergovernmental agreement. The initial meeting went very well, and we've agreed to get back together again after we, now that we understand the issues that each of us have. I don't think that each of us are going to get exactly what we want, but we have 2 years to close the deal and to design new sanitary sewers if necessary, but at least we're moving forward. So thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you. Okay, well, you stole part of it, but that's okay.
Sorry about that.
Mr. Ruggles.
Yeah. The planning commission meets again in October. I don't really have anything to update as far as what we've done. Our last meeting was just to approve the CIP that we saw here tonight. I've been trying as hard as I can to spread information to everybody that's been affected by the tornado to go to the supervisor's office and apply for some aid. So I know at least one or two people came in today and got the paperwork to fill out. So hopefully they can be part of the first 100 people to get $1,000. So anyone that's listening, hopefully you go in there and try to reach out and be part of that. So thanks and good night.
Mr. Supervisor, I'm sorry, Scott brought up something. The ZBA approved for the first time the use of a mobile home or a travel trailer or whatever for a resident on Pontiac, on Tegradine at Pontiac Lake Road, to utilize that as their residence while their home is being reconstructed. And we expect that we'll have a number of those. That's a zoning board of appeals issue. But if you see some people living in trailers, you're going to know why. It didn't make any sense to force them out of the township when they can live on their own property.
Actually, Michael, they came to me and they asked that question a day or two when we could all pick up a phone and use one. They made that request and came in and talked to Justin, and Mr. O'Neill and myself made a decision, emergency situation decision. We weren't going to throw these people out the street. They needed somewhere to go. They had a trailer immediately available. So it was a no-brainer to get these people at least within 60 feet of their house so they could stay there. They're traumatized enough.
Yes.
So, thank you, Mr. Ruggles. Okay. Andrew Voorhees.
Thank you. I had the opportunity to be at the fire department on the 14th, if I'm thinking properly. to be in support of the fire department to honor a 8-year-old female named Brittany Brand, who collected money for the fire department after the tornado. They treated her royally. They gave her a true fireman's hat. I was actually kind of jealous with a little, yeah, it was very cool. She got to play with the hoses. She got to go in the ambulances. It was totally the royal treatment. And if I remember correctly, I think tomorrow morning she's getting picked up by the fire department and going into work or to school, excuse me, on the fire truck. Yeah, it was very cool. It was like I wanted to get on I even volunteered to be the person on the ambulance, go on the cart, but they're like, no, she wanted the fireman. Congratulations go to Chris Hild and Jeff Barber with Chris's 25 years of retirement and service to White Lake Township, and Chris and Jeff Barber's 32 years. Kudos. Congratulations to those guys again. Thank you to Trustee Smith and Clerk Noble for showing up at the Fisk Farm. It was a quiet, different year, but we managed to pull it off, and it was fun. I was tired, and it took me a couple days to recover, but thank you. And then finally, I had a couple of people reach out to me from the September 14th Facebook page about having the I can never say this word right. The reed grass, the Phaceramite?
Phragmites.
Phragmites, thank you. Yes, I'm never gonna say that word right.
Tough one.
We're being treated with a Roundup. I reached out to Justin and he sent me some more information, but they seem it's okay, even though it was taken, it's gonna be taken off the market in 2023. There is evidence. Pardon me?
Roundup is?
Yeah, it's going to be taken off the market in 2023 because it's made by Bayer.
We'll see.
Yeah, because there is evidence that the exposure can cause non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and has been implicated by causing lymphomas and breast cancers. There's evidence that it impacts other wildlife, particularly amphibians. And as stewards of our headwaters of the Huron River, as well as many of us are dependent on groundwater, myself included, it is the utmost responsibility that we find safe alternatives to these herbicides. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Appreciate that. Trustee Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I want to thank my fellow board members for observing a moment of silence at the beginning of our meeting. For the passing of former Oakland County Clerk Bill Cadell, who I endearingly called Doc. He passed away on August 27th, and his funeral is September 3rd. My dad, Senator Fessler, gave a very meaningful eulogy that was about faith, family, and his commitment to the community. Doc was a very, very close personal family friend. My family started to know him in the 70s, and he became an Oakland County Board of Commissioners in 1979. He served as the deputy clerk under Lynn Allen, and then he became Oakland County Clerk from 1998 to 2004. He was very involved in the community. Everybody loved him, and everybody knowed him as Doc. He will be so missed. I have 1,000 memories of this man. He was a huge part of my life and a good supporter and friend of mine, and he'll be dearly missed. My condolences go to his family, his wife Beverly, his son Jeffrey, and Jonathan. Jonathan serves as a precinct delegate with me for the last several terms, and Doc, you'll be very missed. I spent a lot of time with our fire department this month, and gosh, I couldn't be prouder of them. I participated in that really fun Walk for a Great Cause, Walk 140, for the firefighter that walks 140 miles to raise funds for Michigan firefighters with cancer. I believe he raised close to $90,000. He takes donations all year. So if anybody is interested, he walks 140 miles. This is his 3rd year, every September, raising funds for firefighters with cancer and their families. It's incredible. But if anyone's interested, any residents are interested, he does take donations year round, and you can look him up. He has a Facebook page. I had a great afternoon with Andrea and our fire and police and community and historical society at Fisk Farm. I thought it was a pretty good turnout, and they made a few interesting changes this year, and I thought it was great. Andrea and I also had a lot of fun honoring Brittany at fire department, she had a lemonade stand and she donated her proceeds to our fire department, which was so thoughtful and generous. And they did give her the royal treatment. She got a really neat hat. She got a plaque with all their call numbers. They let her participate in everything. She had the biggest smile on her face. I think she's a Dublin student, and I believe she's getting a ride either tomorrow or the next day in the fire truck. So it's really fun. It is also Suicide Awareness Month for Michigan firefighters, and I just want to bring that up. You can support that cause. You can buy a t-shirt or donate as well to spread awareness. And then the fire and police also participated in a fire truck pull for Special Olympics, and that was really neat to watch. And the Lakeland football team did great. So there was a couple other teams that were really successful. That was a great fundraiser that White Lake Township hosted this past weekend or so. And then I'd like to invite my board members to wear pink next month for cancer awareness as well. And I know everybody's family, unfortunately, is affected by this terrible disease. I lost a family member this year. I had 3 family members and a pet all affected by cancer. So it's really important. And so I'd hope that you all join me in wearing pink next month. We're all pretty good about remembering to do that. And the library, quick update, their patios are open and they're beautiful. Go check them out. We still have a couple, gorgeous fall days to look forward to. And I will end by saying I'm very sad to say goodbye to summer, but tomorrow is the first day of fall and it's beautiful, and White Lake's so gorgeous with our trees changing. And so I hope our residents enjoy the season coming up, and I look forward to seeing you all next month. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Smith. Mr. Roman.
Well, as we all know, we just had the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attack. I rewatched a lot of that, very sobering. Thoughts and prayers go out to all those families affected. And I just hope that our Congress puts forth a better effort to protect our borders. I have very little confidence in with what's going on now, especially on our southern border. So I hope and pray that Congress starts to understand that we have to protect those borders. Congratulations to the kids out in Taylor, Michigan. You guys were awesome. The Taylor Little Leaguers won the Little League World Series. So proud of you all. To you guys all, a great board meeting today. It's amazing to serve with all of you. To all of our residents for tuning in, thank you. And everyone stay safe. And Rick, you need some rest.
Okay. Thank you.
Stay home tomorrow.
I've been told to stay home, so by more than one person. Mr. Noble.
Thank you. I was brought to my attention that Brendel's will be out of the township, moving to Independence Township at the end of the month. And I would like to thank, first of all, I'd like to thank Jason, Nick, Justin, and Sean for tackling this long overdue issue. Also, Lisa Hamame for addressing it in a professional way. I'd like to thank Lisa for, taking us out of a third-party lawsuit and really using her legal mind that would have brought us down a road that would have cost the township a lot of money, which she puts the township first. And I really appreciate that. And it just, I've been around a lot of attorneys my whole professional career, and Lisa, bar none, is top notch as far as thinking about the township before her, herself or the law firm. She's really, really valuable, and she shows in it. I'd also like to thank, Jason's been out, and that's one of the toughest jobs in the township, going up enforcing ordinances. And I want to thank Nick Spencer for stepping up the plate. The guy's buried right now, buried in there. And I asked him the other day, I go, do you need help? And he's taken on the task of managing Jason's load while he's off on injury. And that's tremendous to me. That shows that he's going above and beyond. And that whole department really works well cohesively together. And last, I want to thank our staff. It's not my staff, it's the township staff, our staff, Elaine and Dawn. And also Trish for that disaster relief. We put that together. Trish was going on vacation, wanting to get out of here, much needed break. And we were able to correct a couple minor issues and work as a collective team. And I was able to get Rick's signature, Supervisor Kozewal's signature, and walk it down. And a lot of times Elaine and Don aren't acknowledged or back there, but they are the heartbeat of this institution, this government body. Because, I have to pretty much beg them. Guys need to take a day off, and, they really, really step up the plate. I'm lucky to have them back there. So that's who I'd like to acknowledge this month.
Very good. As always, I'd like to thank all the board members for attending tonight's meeting and making it. I realize some of you are world travelers and can't make all the regular meetings. Zoom really works better for you. And if you look at the statistics on the attentiveness of the meeting, it proved that it was more effective for you to be here. So no more vacations, Mike. Okay. You're gonna have to sell those tickets. Okay. I'd like to thank again all, and we said it, but our staff, we have great staff. Everybody does their job, so it's a good thing that everybody does what they can do. I don't know if you all noticed, but Stanley Park has a new sign, so people really know where Stanley Park is. And I fabricated that sign in my shop. Of course, panel we bought elsewhere, but I fabricated the sign, and Justin and myself one afternoon installed it. Because I used to get people calling me periodically or asking me, stopping me in Kroger or wherever it was, and saying, well, where is Stanley Park? And it was kind of a nameless place, but we have seen an increase in activity there. And I can think we'll continue to see that and there's more and more. We will have an update on our points situation with the Department of Natural Resources Trust Fund grant within hopefully the next 30 to 45 days. So I have a better understanding as to where we stand with that. I don't want to jinx anything. Got to keep moving forward. And we will have subsequent meetings here with some of the board. We'll start some information meetings. A little bit out there yet, a little bit just in future regarding some of the center development committee and development in that area. I'd like to thank Mr. Powell for attending with me to add some light dialogue to kind of see where we stand. And we'll just see where it goes. The ball is now up. So with that, I say good night. God bless. And look for a motion to adjourn.
And to adjourn.
I have a motion from Smith to adjourn. I have support from Mr. Coleman. Roll call vote, Mr. Noble.
Trustee Powell?
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees?
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles?
Yes.
Clerk Noble? Yes. Supervisor Kowal?
Yes.
Trustee Smith? And Trustee Roman?
Yes.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.